From the main ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria in Midtown Manhattan, it is NASCAR night in the Big Apple. And welcome to this special edition of Speed Week from here in New York. And we're now about a half hour away from the beginning of our coverage of the NASCAR Winston Cup Banquet for 1996. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Benny Parsons, and a lot of awards will be handed out tonight. And some checks, and Terry Labonte, the champion of the series, going to get, somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million.
Yeah, that's a tremendous amount of money. But, yesterday in a press conference here at the Waldorf Astoria, Terry Labonte said something very strange. He said, you put $1.5 million here and the trophy there. I can only have one. I'll take the trophy.
I found that very interesting, too. Well, it was Mr. Consistency that won the title in 1996. Terry Labonte only had 2 wins, 21 top 5 finishes, 24 top 10s, and only 1 DNF.
7 second-place finishes. I mean, Terry Labonte, when you took a picture of the start-finish line at the checkered flag, Labonte was right there about 9 times.
Well, the enthusiasm of this NASCAR Winston Cup banquet was kind of dampened because of the indictment handed down against Rick Hendrick earlier. Mr. France had a statement on that yesterday.
NASCAR has no knowledge of the allegations associated with the indictment of Rick Hendrick announced yesterday in North Carolina. However, when it comes to motorsports, we wish we had more car owners like Mr. Hendricks. And to have 1 drop of rain fall on Terry and his team members' parade is 1 drop too many and would be inexcusable. Thank you very much.
Words well spoken by Mr. France. Those indictments, of course, in connection with an alleged scheme involving Rick Hendrick's Honda dealerships.
And some folks have asked me, well, his teams are going to be in a lot of trouble in 1997. You think they'll be able to perform? Is he going to have teams? Certainly he's going to have teams. And will they perform? They'll probably even perform better because, trust me, they want to do something in 1997 for the boss.
Well, we're very grateful that Rick Hendrick earlier today took time out of his schedule to talk with us about the indictments and about other subjects. Dr. Jerry Punch was with him earlier in the afternoon. Here's what he had to say.
Thanks, Bob. Again, it's been an incredible year for Hendrick Motorsports, and the man who has led to the success of this 1-2 finish in Winston Cup racing joins me now, Rick Hendrick. And Rick, another great year last year with Jeff Gordon, this year with Gordon and Terry Labonte. Finishing first and second. And then this morning, a special award, the Myers Brothers Award, emblematic of service above and beyond the Call of Duty in NASCAR. Congratulations on that. But unfortunately, a little bit of a dampener being put on this festivities this week, the legal announcements that came out yesterday. But it has to be reassuring for you to be able to hear what Bill France said just a moment ago. People at home heard it again. And the outpouring of support from the NASCAR family and all the fans.
Well, Jerry, it really has been one of the neatest things about NASCAR is the family atmosphere, and Bill France is the leader of the bunch. And it's been so many people called, and it's one of these situations when all the facts are on the table. I'll be completely vindicated. So we're here to celebrate Terry Labonte's championship, and we are really. The Myers Brothers Award this morning was, I never dreamed I'd get that. And what a year the organization's had, and we're just excited about getting down to Daytona and starting her up again.
Well, that's exactly what we're here for, to talk about this championship year. And a little bit we're going to head downstairs. What about Terry Labonte? I mean, what a team player and what a special night this will be for him in the Grand Ballroom.
Well, a lot of people had written Terry off, and he's just such a neat person. He's such a nice guy. We talk about the Iceman and the Iron Man, but he's just a neat, nice guy. And heck of a driver. Been such a big influence in our organization. Great ideas, and he and Gary DeHart together. I mean, it's an unbelievable combination. Those two, just like Ray and Jeff. And I feel very fortunate to have Terry as a part of the organization. And when you look at his family, and he and Bobby in that lap at Atlanta, and his mom and dad and his kids, and they just really deserve this. And this is just such a special championship night for him, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Well, they are glad to be a part of Rick Hendrick's organization as well. And as Bill France put it yesterday, Bob, he would love to have a lot more car owners just like this man right here, Rick Hendrick. A big night for him and his team coming up later.
Well, a lot of excitement and enthusiasm shown by people in their support for Rick Hendrick here in New York City.
This morning when Rick Hendrick received that award, the Myers Brothers Award, folks, there's about 200 people in the room, and they all stood up, and you've never heard such an enthusiastic standing ovation for one man.
Well, that puts a period on the Rick Hendrick subject. Let's get on to more pleasant things. When we come back, we are going to talk with the champion of the 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup Series, Terry Labonte. Well, there's Midtown Manhattan. Kind of a pleasant evening outside. Had a little snow here earlier today, but that's all gone. I'm Bob Jenkins. This is Benny Parsons. This is Speed Week preceding the 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup banquet. These years seem to go by so quickly, don't they?
Yeah, we're here in New York again to give away a lot of money. The top 10 drivers in points in the Labonte Walkway, as we said, $1.5 million, $2 million. And you and I are doing this for nothing again.
Yeah, that's again. Well, the man of the hour is Terry Labonte, the champion. And Dr. Jerry Punch is going to be working with us in the banquet tonight. He is with Terry down by the stage.
Bob, festivities are heating up for the NASCAR Winston Cup Awards banquet. We're just a floor or two above the Grand Ballroom at the Goodyear reception. We caught up with the champion here. And Terry, what a year and what a night. Let me be the first of many tonight to congratulate you on a superb performance in 1996.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry. I really appreciate it. It's an awful exciting night for myself as well as everybody on our Kellogg's team. Rick Hendrick, the owner, and you know, all the guys in the pit crew. Rick flew the entire team from Hendrick Motorsports up here today, and so we've probably got 140 people here for the banquet tonight.
You know, we talk about you being the Iceman and what you did all year long, but you know, I was even touched with the emotion you showed us in that interview in Atlanta. I mean, when I saw you starting to get moist and teary-eyed, I mean, I couldn't talk.
I've never done it before, and I was mad at myself after that for doing that. But I tell you what, it was just a great event for us and just a great moment to be able to win the championship again. I'd worked so hard to try to do it. And then with my brother winning the race and we made the victory lap together, that was just really probably the neatest thing that I've ever done.
Well, that was indeed a special day for the Labonte brothers, and tonight will be a special night for the oldest of the two, Texas Terry, as he's crowned 1996 Winston Cup champion. Bob?
I don't expect a long speech from Terry tonight. He lets most of his talking be done on the racetrack.
That's exactly right, and he did some very good talking. I'm glad he brought up that Atlanta thing. I realize we're here for the championship, but he and Bobby going around that racetrack on that after the race is over, one of the neatest things I've ever seen.
Well, one team is seeking an 8th championship next year, and they have a new crew chief to lead them. Of course, Larry McReynolds has left Robert Yates after 19 wins out of 22 with that team, and he's going to be Dale Earnhardt's crew chief for next year. That was a bit of a surprise to all of us, wasn't it?
Could have knocked me over the feather. When I read the facts on my machine that he was leaving Yates, I said, this can't be. This cannot be. But I've talked to him, and he seems very comfortable with it. He hated to leave Robert Yates, but right now, he's going up there and try to win that 8th championship for Childress and Earnhardt.
Well, of course, Richard Childress will have a 2-car team next year. Mike Skinner will drive the other. Larry McReynolds will be the crew chief for Dale Earnhardt. Jerry is with Richard Childress.
Bob, as preparations continue for the banquet, we're up here at another reception. This is the Bill France reception, and look who we found, Richard Childress. And Richard, big news this week for your team, a new crew chief.
Yeah, you know, we've acquired Larry McReynolds, and man, we're thrilled to death. You know, it's a situation I think it's going to be great for the whole Jim Goodwrench team, and Dale's excited. I've never seen him more excited, and with Larry aboard, it's going to be an exciting year.
Dale said that Larry, just the first time he talked to Larry, it reminded him of the old days with Kirk Shelmerdine, and we know how successful this team was with him and Kirk communicating. That's going to get you pumped up. Plus, Larry's record at Daytona is pretty good.
Yeah, you know, Larry is super well with the restrictor plate cars. You know, those are the cars we're always been racing with down there, and you know, hopefully this year we'll pull that Daytona 500 off. And yeah, Dale's right. You know, Larry's got that drive and he's got that look in his eye. You know, when we were talking about things, man, it just made me feel great, just some of the ideas he had.
Well, this guy's got to be awfully proud, too, because his driver, Bob, this past week went to London and was given a Lifetime Achievement Award by Auto Sport magazine. Last year went to Emerson Fittipaldi. This year, the first time a stock car driver ever won it, and he won a lot of Formula One fans over to Ironhead's Way in London.
And so that's Richard Childress talking about Larry McReynolds, the new crew chief for Dale Earnhardt. Dave Calabro will have more racing news from the studios in a moment.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dave Calabro from the Speed Week studio in Indianapolis. We'll be returning to New York in just a few minutes, but first we want to get you caught up on some of the other news in the world of racing. We begin with the Indy Racing League. Testing has taken place for the 2 chassis that the league will field in 1997.
The driver with the honor of being the first to test the IRL's new car engine package was 1990 Indy 500 winner Ari Luyendyk. Luyendyk tested a G-Force chassis which was powered by an Oldsmobile V8 engine at Phoenix International Raceway. One thing that's for sure, the normally aspirated engines sound a whole lot different than their turbocharged predecessors.
I think these cars will appeal to the fans. I think they will like the sound of the engines. I think they will probably relate to these cars a little bit more than they did to the turbo cars, because these cars have, you know, that good old V8.
The Red Sox are coming off a win in their previous game.
Hi
again, everybody. I'm Dwayne Kuiper with Mike Krukow, and again, it looks like a great evening for a ball game.
But it really does, Kuiper. I'm anxious to get this one started.
Taking the mound to start the game, David Bush.
Of the 1997 IRL opener.
Tonight's American League game features the Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays.
A few seconds of what we were doing here with the Indy cars.
Here's the game's first batter, Johnny Damon.
We've made a few changes now. And I very much think that this is probably going to be one of the best series you ever
And we're underway.
This guy has 4 pitches to choose from.
Close together, the competitiveness is going to be extremely close, and it's what the teams get out of it.
The other engine scheduled to debut in 1997 is the Nissan Infiniti. The engine's first track test should be taking place very soon.
I would think that within a week or 10 days, you can expect to see them on the track in the hands of the teams that will be running them on the track. And we have some testing opportunities available both at Orlando and Phoenix. And, before Christmas, I would think that you'll see that out there.
George also announced on Tuesday that Leo Bell, who retired earlier this year as the general manager for Worldwide Racing for Goodyear Tires, is the new vice president and executive director of the Indy Racing League. Bell replaces Jack Long, who has gone on to other racing interests.
Left
I
side,
had spent
right
35
side,
years
it doesn't matter. This
going
guy's just
to
a good
25
hitter.
races a year
And a first pitch strike.
doing lots of different
I know the
things,
infielders
trying
are
to do a lot of
thinking,
things
too, they're going to need a pretty well-hit
and
ground
I
ball
really
here
felt
because
at the
this
time I
guy
was
flies out of the
retired.
batter's box.
But after a few months and 20 pounds later and
Nobody out.
a new computer and I'm really looking for a challenge.
Now he falls behind 1-2.
Tony's been talking to me for years, so I'm excited about this thing.
In other IndyCar news, Dr. Terry
That was a
Tremble,
purpose pitch.
Hart's
He was trying
longtime
to get the
director
batter
of
to
medical
chase.
services, is stepping down from his post after 12
Lofts
years
one
on
to
the
left.
job. Tremble cited economic factors in
He's
today's
got it for
competitive
the out.
healthcare industry
Sends the
as
throw
the
to the
reason for
cutoff
his
man.
departure. On Tuesday,
Nice pitch there to
Team
get the
Cool
fly ball.
Green
Nice
finally
job.
announced their American driver for the
Next at the plate,
1997
Miguel
IndyCar
Cabrera.
campaign. Parker
This
Johnstone,
right-hander just knows how to hit
17th in
Brady
the
pitches.
1996 PPG Cup Championship, is owner Barry Green's choice. Johnstone became available after leaving the Bricks Comtech team on November 18th. Also on Tuesday, the NASCAR Craftsman Cup Series held an open test at Walkersville Speedway. 53 drivers participated in preparation for the season opener, which will take place at that 1 mile oval on January 19th. Joe Nemechek was the quickest of the bunch. Jay Souter, who replaces Winston Cup-bound Mike Skinner, was third quick.
ESPN2's Winter Heat Series got underway last weekend with NASCAR late model competition. Tom Sweatman started on the pole with John Sewell on the outside, and the two were battling from the beginning. Now, Sewell had passed Sweatman on the second lap, but they were still racing hard on the 21st circuit when Tom clipped John's left rear and sent him into the wall. Sweatman was flagged. Greg Biffle had put himself in the lead by lap 33 when Chris Trickle made his bid to the front. But with just 13 laps left, Chris lost control and spun out down the backstretch. Carl Trimmer then inherited the lead and was able to hold on for the remaining laps to record his first Winter Heat victory.
In our final open wheel highlight segment of 1996, we show you how two drivers claimed two championships in two different races, all at the same track.
Richard Griffin was the SCRA points leader entering the season finale at Paris, California, but his championship hopes took a hit in qualifying when he rode out this wild flip. He was uninjured and, in fact, jumped in another car for heat race action. Unfortunately, turn 3 once again saw the gas man on his head. This time Griffin was not cleared medically to compete. Griffin wasn't the only one having trouble keeping the rubber side down. Sid Carlson was flipping when he was hit by Gary Coons Jr. Carlson's car seemed to disintegrate, but the roll cage did its job and Carlson walked away. Gary Foss was leading the 40-lap main event when he got together with Dwight Cheney's lap car and flipped into turn 3. He was uninjured but done for the night. Bobby McNovich inherited the lead, then with 8 laps to go, he was passed by Ron Schumann for the lead. The Flying Shoe held on to record his first SCRA win of the year en route to the SCRA Championship. Thursday at Paris, the 56th Turkey Night Grand Prix was held for USAC's National and Western States midgets. Billy Boat's new track record in qualifying put him on the pole for the 100-lap feature. Boat's teammate Richard Griffin's rough week continued with another turn 3 flip. He complained of back pain, but was otherwise okay. Tonight's scariest incident occurred when Larry Brown spun and was drilled by John Starks. The impact ruptured Brown's oil tank. Both drivers escaped injury. Dave Drake clinched the Western States title by signing in. His night ended with a flat tire while running second. The night belonged to Boat and fell to his second straight win in the Thanksgiving Classic.
One quick NHRA note, Bob Glidden, the winningest professional drag racer in history, will return to NHRA competition in 1997. Glidden's plans for the upcoming year were kind of unclear when Ford Customer Service had to reallocate his sponsorship funds. But a special agreement announced 2 weeks ago by Ford Special Vehicle Operations will allow the 10-time Pro Stock champion to compete in his 27th season.
Don't forget, we still have 3 Speedweek shows to bring you this month. The first 2 will be the annual Roundtable show. Our panel of analysts include Benny Parkin, John Beekes, Dave McClellan, Bob Barsha, Larry Rice, and a special appearance by 6-time NHRA Funny Car champion. Our final show of the year is a special that will include in-depth interviews with racing greats Emerson Fittipaldi and Bobby Allison. When Speedweek returns, we'll rejoin the gang in New York. Now, let's take a look at the CarQuest racing calendar.
That's a 3-pitch strikeout. With 1 inning played, the game is scoreless. Leading off, David Ortiz. This guy's a pretty decent hitter. Bush throws a strike with a
For all
fastball.
of your auto parts needs, you'll find it at the Parkway.
The main ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria in Midtown Manhattan. This is a special edition of Speed Week in preparation for the NASCAR Winston Cup Banquet. Bill France Jr. at the helm of NASCAR for 25 years, and he said yesterday, Benny, during the news conference, that NASCAR has come a long way in that period of time.
Man, unbelievable. They've opened an office in New York about 2 blocks from the Waldorf. They've been to Canada, Japan, ran a race over there, and attendance is up, and also TV ratings all up in 1996.
Things looking very bright for NASCAR, and because it is 25 years at the helm for NASCAR, we feel it's appropriate to pay special tribute to the boss, Bill France Jr. If there's one name that means stock car racing more than NASCAR, it is France. From the very inception of the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, a member of the France family has been at the helm of the sport.
2-2 the count.
On January 11, 1972, NASCAR founder Bill France Sr. stepped down as president, handing the control of auto racing's most successful sanctioning body to his son, William Clifton France. Tonight, we salute Bill France on the 25th anniversary of his presidency.
I really think that the passing of the torch happened at the right time in Bill Sr.'s life and Bill Jr.'s life. And I think both men were ready for this new challenge that they had. It's been a lot of fun the last 25 years and a lot of hard work, but I think we all expected that.
I think when he first took over from Big Bill, a lot of people had a lot of negative thoughts about whether he could run it or not. But I don't know. I've always had confidence in him, and you know, it showed. I think that a lot of the older people that had worked with his dad thought maybe he couldn't do the job. But I think that he's made a believer out of all of them. So as far as his accomplishments, just keeping it all together, making it bigger and better, he's done a heck of a job.
What I like about him is, what was that guy's name in City Slicker, old cowboy? Curly?
I like Bill Francis. He does one thing, but he does it right. He's not like some guys that can all over the place, different venture here, different venture there, trying to do a little something over here, a little something over there. He does Winston Cup racing. He does NASCAR racing, and he does it right.
I think the interesting thing about my father is his incredible understanding about doing what's good for the sport.
Heading into the bottom of the
always
second,
kept
no
his
score
eye
here.
on how to make sure that it was a very fair playing field, the drivers, teams, that the tracks could win, sponsors could win, and that everybody in the sport could win. And he really believes that. It shows in everything NASCAR has done. And I think, frankly, that's probably the single most significant thing that he brings to the table.
After my father died,
and it's caught on a run.
Now there's a pretty good play right there. Line drive out just time. Makes a good play.
Bill Francis has been that guy in my career and in my life. He sure has done a lot for Dale Earnhardt and this sport. And I'm, you know, looking forward to the future.
He picked that ball
You know, I sort of worry about when he's not.
You know, he really has a number of roles that he has to play. At the racetrack, for instance, he has to maintain turtle control, but then again, I see the side of him working with him every day as a company. It's much different in that he allows people to see new opportunities. He's open-minded to change. And I think that's a real key to his success. He's able to juggle those personalities and the different roles that he plays.
Bill Jr. saw right out that this is everybody's sport. And,
no balls, one strike.
He made it attractive to the women and the children and the older folks, as well as those of us that were out there competing. Billy, congratulations on the 25 years as president of NASCAR. But, I look forward to 25 more years since Betty Jane says you're not retiring.
Dad, congratulations on your successful 25 years. We really appreciate all you've done for the sport. But most important, thanks for being you. You're a great dad.
Here's the first batter of the inning.
We are just a few minutes away from the start of the NASCAR Winston Cup banquet here in the main ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Benny Parsons. We're going to wrap up Speed Week here with a little bit of other news that's happened in the last few days.
Well, Paul Andrews, it's announced, is moving from the number 7 QVC car of Jeff Bodine over to the Kranefuss Haas 37 car, Jeremy Mayfield.
There were a lot of people that voted this year for most popular driver, and it went right down to the wire. A battle between Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt. But for the 11th time, Bill Elliott is the most popular driver.
And at the wild card drawing for the Busch Clash yesterday, Rusty Wallace gets that last spot.
And Bill France told us yesterday the schedule is fixed for 1997. There was some speculation that perhaps another race would be added to it, but nope, the schedule for 1997 announced earlier is the schedule we'll go with. Hey, we got to get out of here because the banquet is starting. Stay with us now. We'll be right back for the 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup Awards banquet.
Nice pitch there to get the fly ball.
Dirksen strolls to the plate.
Next November, and you can say, you heard it here first, this team will be a serious threat for the 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship.
Go 1-1. On the ground.
This is Atlanta Motor Speedway, scene of the 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship Showdown. A spectacular ending to a truly amazing year. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain. Welcome to the McDonald's NASCAR Winston Cup rearview mirror. Rearview mirror. A look back at the season. Get it? And joining me for all the fun is Benny Parsons. Benny, what an amazing year and what an amazing finale.
Anytime you come to Atlanta with 3 guys, a chance to win that NASCAR Winston Cup Championship worth $1.5 million for the winner and about $480,000 for the second place cup, you know it's going to be exciting, and it was.
We're going to take a look at all of the highlights and a few of the lowlights of the 96 season in our rearview mirror. But most importantly, we're going to hear from the heroes, the men who make Winston Cup racing what TV Guide accurately called the hottest sport in America.
There's a lot to like in stock car racing. Neat-looking cars that go fast, sound great, and are as safe as anything in motorsports. Their drivers as colorful as the paint job. The man in black, Wonder Boy, DJ, the Iceman.
8 months ago, these 4 1/2 dozen more were legitimate title contenders. Over 9 months and 31 races, all stepped up and took their shot. Dale Jarrett claimed the big wins and the big checks with breathtaking regularity. When it was time to race for the biggest check of all, bad luck spoiled his million-dollar dream, but his title hopes survived all the way to the finale. Dale Earnhardt was his intimidating old self early in the season, a candidate for the unprecedented 8th championship. Then came a single grinding moment of devastation and pain at Talladega. The car a write-off. Earnhardt's fracture would heal, but in retrospect, the truth is clear. Earnhardt's chances for the '96 title were damaged beyond repair. And in the end, there were 2. There is a lot to like in stock car racing. What better than a battle between teammates? As different as night and day, and yet in many ways identical. Determined, focused, breathtakingly talented. Each looking for his second championship. The one that proves the first. The catch is made by the shortstop. Each is backed by his personal cog and a powerful wheel called Hendrick Motorsports. By a team that will do whatever it takes to keep their guy out front, to give their guy a shot at the title. Jeff Gordon's Atlanta finale was a microcosm of his amazing season, battling back from 2 laps down to keep his title hopes alive. But in the end, Terry Labonte was his old self, calm, cool, collected, despite the pain of a broken hand. He drove a no-muss, no-fuss kind of race to 5th and put the title on ice.
It was close right down to the wire, with Labonte only topping teammate Gordon by 37. Jarrett finished 89 points out of the top spot. Earnhardt was 4th. And no strike. He get that 8th championship, 330 points back. Mark Martin only 49 behind Earnhardt in 5th. And that's without a win this season.
Second 5 has Ricky Rudd in 6th. Despite 5 victories, Rusty Wallace settles for 7th. Sterling Marlin, a disappointing 8th compared to what he did last year. Bobby Hamilton with a strong finish in his first victory moves into the top 10. And Bernie Urban won 2 races to take the 10th spot. You take a look at the rest of the top 25. We will take commercial break.
This righty hits right-handed pitching pretty well. Curves foul.
McDonald's 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup rearview mirror is presented by McDonald's. On the track and in our restaurants, just watch us cook.
The right fielder glides under this one.
It wasn't close. I mean,
makes the catch to record
it wasn't close at all. Like I was telling them, you know, I hadn't won 7 championships. I hadn't won my first race. I hadn't won 84 or 85 race, whatever he's won. But I'm smart enough to know you don't do that to start the season because there's too many races left.
Well, Larry accosted me. So I have a real problem with that. I have a problem with Ernie Irvin and that whole bunch. You know, evidently, it wasn't my fault in that deal. He drove up into me, and he wrecked himself. You know, then he had the audacity to come over here and accost me. You know, I'm not happy with it, and I'm going to have a talk with NASCAR about it. You know, he's just lucky I didn't knock him on his butt.
You know, you can always count on Dale Jarrett for a good quote. And the other thing you could count on from the 88 car this year was that team would find its way to the pay window. Amazing for a first-year outfit.
You know, you would expect a first-year team to have problems with consistency. But you really didn't expect them to rise to the occasion on those big races like they did. If it paid a lot of money, trust me, Dale Jarrett and that crew was going to be there.
Indeed, they won the 3 richest races of the year. Let's take an opportunity to look into the rearview mirror with Dale Jarrett. Did you expect this new team to have anything approaching that kind of success?
I don't think even as big optimist as I am, but I could have expected something like this. So you put together a group of guys that had never worked together before. The only 2 people on our team that had ever worked together were Todd and Brad Parrott, who are brothers. And Todd had never been a crew chief before.
What about Todd Parrott? I mean, maybe it's that second generation thing, but I mean, how does a guy get that good at what he does that quick? That's pretty disappointing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the best thing I can say about Todd is he's worked around good people and he's paid attention there. And he's a very sharp individual to begin with. And you know, working with his dad for a number of years has helped him a lot. He understands race procedures, and we just were fortunate to pick Todd up at a time that he was ready to be a crew chief. Not everyone believes that, but we believe that he was ready and would definitely pay dividends down the road. But he paid big dividends right from the very start.
Is there one of those, oh man, moments somewhere in that 31 races, a moment that you'd like to have back that you could do again?
I said it at the very time that it happened. Watkins Glen, we've had just an awesome day because everybody expected us not to run well there. We qualified second, ran in the top 3 all day. And because some people took on just 2 tires, we were battling Earnhardt for 5th place, and with about 4 laps to go. And I got to the inside of it going into 1, it hit the curb and bounced into him and cut the left front tire down. And I went from finishing 5th or 6th to finishing 24th, and that was about 65 points. So we lost. So, you know, if I have to say that, you know, I look back, but there's a number of things that you can look back at. We had a bolt to break on the front of the crankshaft of Pocono, and that just doesn't happen. So there's a lot of things, but all we can do is learn from them. It's not that we regret doing it.
Takes a pitch
You took a
just
heck
off
of a
the plate,
career.
1-0.
You were with a pretty high-profile team that helped you win Daytona the first time. Came over here to Yates Racing. There was all the uncertainty about Ernie. The long-term prospects there looked like they might be a little shaky. What did you see there that led you to make that?
Well, I think that what I wanted to do was see how a real championship team was run. The opportunity to work with a group of people that had been there and done that. And, you know, they hadn't won a championship, but they've been through that. What it really takes, because I was looking at my own organization. I wanted to see exactly what it took and see, you know, Dale Judd's never been in that quality of a car either. And if I was in that, could I do the job? Could I get it done? Obviously, a lot of people in 1995 didn't much think so, but I certainly believed it that, you know, with the right people and the right setups, I could certainly do it. So that's what I was going on. And, you know, security, yeah, that's good, but putting yourself in the right position and getting with the right people is more important to me. And I've said it a number of times. I think Keith Overman on SportsCenter says it best that talking about players that are day-to-day, he said, but then again, aren't we all? And that's the way that I looked at it, that, you know, why plan for the future? Because we don't know what the future really holds. So let's get in the best situation we can for the time.
You've got this year of experience under your belt, you and this team. What are you going to do in 1997 that maybe you didn't do in 96 or couldn't do in 96 that'll get you the big prize, win you the championship?
I think that we learned a lot about racing for a championship, but you have to start at Daytona thinking about a championship. You have to start right then because, you know, even though we won Daytona and ran well the first couple of races, but that didn't factor in there until we got to Darlington and we had a chance to try to win the race or run out of gas, and we chose to run out of gas trying to win the race. And if we would have come in, we could have probably finished 6th or 7th, and we ended up finishing 15th. So there's a lesson learned. You have to be racing for a championship every single race. You can't, you put yourself in a position to win, but that doesn't always happen if you can win. So you have to get the most points that you possibly can that day.
Fastball inside.
And one thing we didn't talk about was Dale Jarrett's injuries. A great season despite being injured.
He had a broken leg and a couple of cracked ribs. Nonetheless, held on to be a title contender to the end. Wrestling is part of racing, unfortunately. One of those lowlights we talked about at the top of the show. We'll take a look at the worst crashes of '96 when the McDonald's NASCAR Winston Cup rearview mirror continues. Winston Cup cars are famous for protecting their drivers, and it's a good thing because they insist on frequently testing their crash resistance. Kyle Petty's cut tire at Indy led to a series of bone-breaking impact, cracked ribs, and several weeks out of the cockpit. Bill Elliott says it wasn't a hang time at Talladega, it was that landing. Full force on the left side, the frame rail pressed into the femur, which broke Austin Bill 2 months on the sideline. Talladega, notorious for multi-car crashes. Is there anything that hasn't already been said about this one? The oft-replayed melee in which Ricky Craven's car was beaten and battered from every possible angle, but the all-important driver enclosure protected its occupants. And then there was Dale Earnhardt's Talladega disaster. In light of the potential cost of a crash like this, I guess a broken collarbone and sternum is a small price to pay. Earnhardt has spent his career developing a reputation as a tough guy. He lived up to his billing by walking away from the battered remains of the good wrench Chevy and then built on that reputation with an Iron Man effort in the weeks that followed. Benny, even his harshest critics have got to be impressed with what Earnhardt did after Talladega.
Dave, and folks, if you got any questions about Dale Earnhardt being a racer, he certainly answered those at the Brickyard. Having to get out of that car, and we just saw the emotion, how he hated to get out of that race car and turn it over to Mike Skinner. And then the next week at Watkins Glen. How about that, folks? Broken breastbone, collarbone, road course where you go right and left. shift gears. He qualifies on the pole, leads the most laps, and refuses to get out of that race car. Earnhardt is the winner.
He's a tough cat, and he's next in the rearview mirror. Was Talladega the turning point in terms of your chase for the championship?
Anytime you get built up pretty good in a race car, or any sport, really, it takes a while to recover. You play hurt for quite a while. And, it was a setback. There were periods of time that we had better days than others, and periods that we had really rough days. So I can't blame everything on the Talladega wreck, just Talladega. And the rest of it was just circumstantial. You know, we had to put a backup driver in at the end. Watkins Glen was a good race for us, but yet we give up there at the end, driver-wise, and just tough.
He fouled it off to the right.
Any second thoughts after that crash? You didn't crash that hard that often. You and Therese ever look each other in the eye after that and think, boy, how much longer do we want to keep doing this?
Racing's part of our life, and we sort of got our time frame and a time schedule for everything we want to do, and we're not there yet. We've got several years left in racing and to win and try to win another championship or several championships. And that's what we're going for. Phyllis and I have talked it over several times, and there's no second guessing it. I mean, that's like staying in the car at Watkins Glen. Preacher got a little upset about that because he thought I was overdoing it. And really, I probably was, but still, I wasn't taking any more chance doing that than I was racing at any other point time in my career. You take that chance sometime in the race.
You may not second guess each other. Everybody in the world second guesses the guy at the top. For any other driver, second and fourth in 2 seasons would be great. For you, it brings the critics out of the woodwork. What's wrong with the team? They've lost their focus. They've got too many other things going on. Can you buy any of that? Are you as good a team as you were?
Well, the more you win, the more you do, the more you accomplish, the more there is to go along with it. More people, there's more opportunities, more things to do, more people want you to do things. And you just got to gear up and do it. Since Charlotte, I think we've been home a total of 4 to 5 days, and until after Japan, we won't be home until another day or two to learn that. But in all doing all that, there's a lot of good things happening. The racing, for one. The banquets, the opportunity to go to Japan and race.
The count's even at 1.
Going to London for a little award. It's pretty exciting deal to be an American driver. Going to London
to left field.
International award.
But bottom line, 3 months from now, 1997, starting with a clean slate, is this race team going to be the team to beat for the championship?
We're going to be one of the guys to beat. That's what we pride ourselves in every year, is being one of the guys in the hunt. And I don't know whether we'll be as strong as we have been in the past because everyone's gotten strong. But still, we're going to be there doing our best. And I tell you, Phyllis is a phenomenal car. He just keeps working and rising to the occasion and to the task. And the challenge comes and we need it. I feel like we can win another championship, and I feel like next year is a good opportunity.
Well, Earnhardt didn't have a chance to win that championship, that final race in Atlanta. He certainly let it be known. He was pulling for Terry Labonte. Might be because they started at the same time. This was in 1979.
Terry Labonte is one of the Winston Cup heroes from whom we will hear later in the hour. Up next, 3 guys whose combined efforts produced a total of 7 Winston Cup victories. We'll be back with more of the McDonald's NASCAR Winston Cup rearview mirror.
And he scores the first run.
Next up in the rearview mirror, Bobby Hamilton, who made his first visit to victory lane in Phoenix this fall in his 157th career start. Indeed, Hamilton knows that NASCAR fans are more excited to see King Richard Petty get his first win as a car owner. And of course, everyone's a Richard Petty fan.
I can't think of one person I've ever met that didn't like Richard Petty. And that goes a long way with me driving the race car. So I'm glad for them to get the car back there. I wanted to be the one to bring the car back to victory lane, and I was beginning to wonder if he was going to be able to do it before the season was out. But it feels real good.
You know, there can't be many people in this sport who weren't happy to see King Richard get back in victory lane. But Benny, what about the guys who didn't win the race? Is it a complete loss? Is your season a disaster if you don't win?
I don't think so. Someone like Mark Martin, who won 4 times in 1995 and didn't win in 1996. So he was right there. He had a chance to win so many times, just couldn't pull it off. But you take someone like Richie Rudd. Now, he'd won a race 13 straight years and trying to keep that streak alive? Yes. If he hadn't won and kept that streak alive, it would have been a complete loss.
How did you know that Ricky Rudd is one of the guys we're about to join in the rearview mirror here, as we hear from a man who won a lot and two guys who won late? The guy who won a lot, of course, is Rusty Wallace. 5 victories in '96, second only to Gordon. 25 wins in 4 years, second to no one.
Well, it's easy to put on my number one goal forever and ever, but I just haven't looked close to performances. That's definitely been there. I mean, all these wins and running up front and doing this and doing that. But I can't put up with a DNF and then a win and a DNF and a win.
Those who waited late to win were Ricky Rudd and Bobby Labonte. Ricky has won a race every year since '83. Last season he won with only 1 race left. This year, not quite so dramatic. He won with 2 races left.
It's something I think that we're very proud of to have a record like that. And there's not too many guys that can claim that type of performance over the years, and especially the different teams and the different cars that I've driven for over the years. But you know, every year we come out, we want to come out and win every single race in the Winston Cup schedule. Obviously, that doesn't happen. So somewhere along the line, there's a compromise, and we're just really happy that we can win at least a race every year for quite some time now. And it was a struggle this year. I was beginning to wonder if it was going to happen.
And Bobby made the series finale at all Labonte's show, finally winning on the day his brother claimed the championship, adding a huge Unical bonus for doing so from his 4th pole in 7 races. And thus proving that the new in-house engine program is coming along fine.
The best thing about it is people said it takes you 5 years to become a contender. And at first, you know, it looked like that. But those guys, John Wilson, Mark Conquist, all the guys talking, and those guys worked night and day. And we really turned that thing around to where the program is working, and we got confidence in it. They've got confidence in us. So, I mean, in a full season, we went 180 degrees.
Now, those guys won 7 races between them. Jeff Gordon, he's visited victory lane 10 times this year, more than anybody else. We'll hear from him later.
And next, I'm going to sit down with elder statesman. Elder statesman Darrell Walter. Stay with us as the McDonald's NASCAR Winston Cup rearview mirror continues. Comebacks were a big story in '96 as we take a look in the rearview mirror. Ernie Irvan back for his first full season since '93, and he managed a top 10 finish in the points and win at Loudon and Richmond. Not bad for a guy who didn't have much of a chance to ever race again.
There's not a medical doctor in the world that doesn't think this is some sort of a miracle, but I don't really have nothing to compare it to. I'm really excited that God has watched out for me and enabled me to be able to do this again.
Jeff Bodine came back from a divorce that last year left him feeling like he didn't want to race anymore. But the owner driver found his way to victory lane for the first time since '94 with a solid win at Watkins Glen, which was special for Bodine.
Sometimes you try to make a hitter chase your pitch.
The win at Watkins
exactly what you saw right there.
Was the result of a lot of hard work. Don't
this
give
guy's
up
waiting for his chance to tie the game.
And a lot of healing within the team, within myself. We all know that story, I guess, the divorce thing.
Ortiz is
but Watkins Glen, I think, tells the story of this year. We didn't win. We won convincingly. We didn't luck into it. We earned it.
There are a couple of guys who've seen a little controversy in their careers. Irvin, of course, with the recent wreck with Dale Earnhardt, and Bodine back when he and Earnhardt used to wreck every week. But I don't think there's a guy that's been more controversial in his career than Darrell Walton. He came up when you were a hero. What did you think of the guy?
Well, I was probably a little jealous of Darrell Walton because, A, he was a little younger than I was, had a lot more hair than I had. You and I both, as a matter of fact. And he was winning a little more races than I was winning. And he also was winning more championships. So that's probably a little jealous of Darrell.
Well, from the rearview mirror, we're going to go to the big picture now because guess what? Darrell Walton has a new status in the sport. I'm a little curious about how comfortable you are with this new title that I see in one of the magazines. An elder statesman for the sport of Winston Cup racing. Does that fit well with you?
Up the middle.
Okay.
I'm 49 years old.
That'll do it for
now,
the Red
Sox in
the
49
7th.
years old.
All right, everybody.
Well, maybe you
up on
can
their
because we got a
feet.
president.
Time for the
He's not really
7th
all
inning
that.
stretch.
He's about the same
Yeah,
age.
I could use a bit of a
See
break.
what kind of job he does. So I guess I could be the elder statesman, but you know why people, I guess I look old. I don't know.
The top of the order coming
put
up.
me in that Petty, Allison, Yarborough, Pearson era, and they think I'm as old as those guys are.
One of the things that comes along with that, though, is a perspective that spans that gap. See, that's where the statesman part of it.
Well, I have perspective. Two things I got. 20/20 hindsight.
3 pitches, 3 strikes.
Well, take that perspective and maybe look into your crystal ball.
There,
5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you're going to be out of the cockpit. We think you're probably going to be a car owner. Who knows what other roles you might have. But beyond that, how big can this thing get? What do we need to keep it moving the right direction? And maybe the spin-off question is, what are the pitfalls?
I think one thing that we have to really all be concerned about is growth. Growth takes management. And you got something that's snowballing like this thing is.
He goes down on strike.
It's got to be controlled.
3 pitches, 3 strikes. Didn't get easier that part.
We were looking for places to race.
Stepping up to the plate with a single already. Mark Teixeira.
New victories. Right now they're looking for us. Everybody says you got to have a 5-year plan.
He's on with a
I'd like to sit down with Barry Sanders.
The Blue Jays have someone throwing in their bullpen.
That's more than his 5-year plan. That's what I'd like to do. So I can adjust accordingly. Right now, we're just making out schedules and we're adding on races and it looks great and this is exciting and this is great. But where are we going? And I ask that question pretty regularly. Where are we going? I can't keep up sponsor-wise. I can't go to my sponsor often enough and say I need more money. Because every time I think I got what I need, NASCAR throws me a curve. Every time I got what I think I need, they change the wheels. Body, quarter panels up, quarter panels down, spoiler up, spoiler down, 14-to-1 engine, 15-to-1 engine, no restrictor plate, sleeves in the motor, no sleeves in the motor.
Let me play devil's advocate for that, maybe. Let me take, and the media don't often do this, but let me take NASCAR's side and say, well, now, wait a minute, Dale. All that may be true, but look where we were and look where we are. Look at your bottom line, look at all the money. I mean, certainly there's a case to be made that this is one of the true success stories of the 80s or the 90s, I agree, in American sport. So are we looking for the balance here then? Is that the bottom line on this? That we've got to keep that growth but manage the growth?
We got to catch our breath. I mean, you know, we got people building racetracks now. See, used to nobody would build a racetrack. Nobody would spend $100 million, $150 million to build a racetrack because they knew they couldn't get a date. So they just didn't they would come to NASCAR and say, if we build it, will you come? Now they've learned, as in the movie, we build it, they will come.
With 2 innings remaining, the Blue Jays
New Hampshire
lead
and
2-0.
Now Texas and Wilkesboro, all of a sudden everybody says, if we build it, we'll get a date. Look at Homestead, look at Las Vegas, and so on and so forth. This is good. I mean, this is free enterprise. And if somebody's got a better mousetrap, then we need to take advantage of it. It's going to get stickier as we go along. And I'm glad to be a part of it. I love it. It's exciting for me. But you asked about, you know, it's bigger and it's better. Sure, I'm making more, but I'm spending a lot more. And that's the bottom line. When I get done at the end of the year, man, look what I made. Look what I spent. And that's the good news, bad news.
You were a thorn in the side of those old guys when you came up and you were Jaws, and I get the sense that as you mature in your role as an elder spokesman, you're going to continue to be a thorn in their side, don't you?
Well, I think somebody has to get their attention. And I trust me. I know this for a fact. You see that little machine running around? That gets their attention. When you say something to America and the hundreds of millions of people that watch that little thing right over there, that gets their attention.
Hey, America. Boy, I see a lot more of Darrell Walter.
I'll tell you something else. The big sponsors that drive this thriving sport are attracted by that television camera. It's also the reason that we see those ridiculous, ongoing, never-ending hat exchanges in Victory Lane. But you know what I hate the most? I hate those Santorized, all sound the same, made for television sound bites.
We know we're a strong team. Who's done a great job. My guys are just trying to do the best job they can.
We ran good all day long, and you know, Keller Chevy was pretty tough.
We had a really good car. What, the RC4 to run awesome all day, handle good, the motor ran good. We're real happy with it. You know, the guys are doing a real good job.
It's always a lot of fun. The Interstate cars did a great job. The guys did a great job in the pits all day. Had a great car all day long. The guys did a terrific job in the pit.
It's a shame because our Keller Chevy was running pretty good.
You know, I think the best thing about winning here at Dover is that DuPont's right in Wilmington up the street.
He's in there with a 2-out
Sterling
single.
Marlin continues to see super speedway success in his rearview mirror. A win in the spring race at Talladega and a rain-shortened victory in the Pepsi 400 in July. But even with the 2 victories, Marlin was disappointed. 8th place in the points, and he has some answers on how Morgan McClure needs to improve.
After 7.5, Toronto leads by 2.
You'll come back next year and you'll get back to top 5 in points, and that's what we'd like to get a full that race. So we'll see what we do about it.
John Sterling, let's go to the story of those frequent rule changes this year in Winston Cup racing. And Benny, that's a story that actually dates back to the end of last season.
The final race in Atlanta in 1995, NASCAR did something they've never done before. They impounded a Ford, a Chevrolet, and a Pontiac, and they took them to the win tunnel. Didn't depend on the team for that information. Collected their own information and trying to get those cars equal as they could possibly be. In 1996, then they started playing with Ford, aerodynamics, trying to make the playing field as level as they possibly could, because they want to promote side-by-side racing.
No surprise that not everyone agreed with all those rule changes.
I think this has probably been a record-breaking year as far as rules are concerned. They've been so Mickey Mouse. And that's another aggravating side is we had cars that turn obsolete before they roll out the door of the race because of the rule changes. And it's just a bunch of bull.
Well, tell us how you really feel, Bill. I think it's fair to say that individual brand loyalties may have a lot to do with your view of a particular rule change. But however you felt about the rules, the guy who enforces them is Larry Nelson of NASCAR. Remember what a big story it was a few years ago when one of the all-time most, innovative Winston Cup creatures crossed the fence and became NASCAR's top cop. Give a listen to his perspective after a couple of years behind the dash.
What's neat about this sport, and I think a lot of people miss when they get an overview of what's going on, is here's all these guys that are working within the rules and making their car just a little bit better than the guy next to them by using their looks or their ingenuity or their knowledge or just hard work. And that still pays off. It's still the guy that's the sharpest or put together the sharpest team and works the hardest usually ends up on top anyway. And we touch this car so close every week. And you know, we're not finding things like we used to. So that tells me that, we're still looking. So that tells me that the guys that are still winning are doing it by hard work and ingenuity. And I see little things going on in the cars. But I said, boy, that's a good idea, and it's perfectly legal.
Well, let's tell you one thing. Gary Nelson hit that nail right on the head. Rules are always going to be controversial. But the 3 things he's always trying to do is use wit, ingenuity, and hard work for success.
Well, now, wait a minute, Benny. Some people would argue there's a 4th ingredient, the multi-car team. We'll talk about it when we come back.
And he's down on strikes.
Welcome back to Atlanta Motor Speedway. The McDonald's NASCAR Winston Cup rearview mirror turns its attention to multi-car teams. 2 owners fielded 3 drivers each throughout the campaign. Rick Hendrick won everything in sight. As hard as it is to believe, Jack Ross didn't win anything. The Roush Racing triumvirate of Mark Martin, Ted Musgrave, and new member Jeff Burton is a gold mine of proven and potential talent. Martin, a 4-time winner last year, blames off-season rule changes for a huge 96 setback. But his guys regrouped, finished the year with a remarkable 15 straight top 10 finishes, and never got to victory lane. There goes that old cliche, if you put yourself in position, the wins take care of themselves.
I still believe it's true. Just sometimes it looks like you have to wait longer than you're supposed to. You're right. We put ourselves in position over and over and over again.
One on and no one out.
What I hope to see happen is get the wins in 97 that we should have gotten 96, and get the wins in 97 that we should get in 97, and have a fabulous year.
Meanwhile, Martin thinks his new teammate Jeff Burton has a great future.
He gives me a lot of credit for this a lot, and I just
sometimes
said
you try to make the hitter chase your
smart,
pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
Because, to be honest with you, I said that he's the next
superstar for this division.
Al Burton didn't win this year, but he came close enough to serve notice. With another year of experience under his belt, he'll be tough in 97.
We want to win some races. We've put ourselves in position to win some races this year and then get it done. So hopefully it's that old adage about you got to lose something to win some. We're putting that into effect. So I think we lost chances of no less than 6 races that we could have won. But they don't tell you what you could have done or what you should have done. They tell you what you do.
Benny, I still can't believe Jack Roush's 3 cars could run 93 races. Well, 92 races. Burton didn't qualify at Atlanta. 92 races and not win.
It just seemed unbelievable, but they were so close so many times. Martin and Jeff Burton. Kevin Musgrave did not have a particularly good year. But you think of the drivers he had, Martin, Musgrave, and Jeff Burton, that Victor's around the corner. And he's also got quality crew chiefs. He even will run the operation. That Jimmy Finnegan's over there, and Buddy Ferret. You know success just has to be somewhere right around that corner.
Well, let's talk about the other guys. They sure don't have to wait for success. Hendrick Motorsports looms large in the rearview mirror.
3 balls.
Hendrick Motorsports is such a huge success story. The championship last year, first and second in the championship in 96. It's easy to forget that its owner has chased the brass ring of multi-car success for over a decade. Newcomers to the multi-car world should listen closely to Rick Hendrick.
It seems that people have dramatically oversimplified this equation and said, okay, I can add another team and get a bunch more test dates, so I'll add another team. Do you kind of laugh up your sleeve a little bit when you see all these people jumping on what looks like a very successful bandwagon?
I really do. Matter of fact, I told our guys the other day, I said, I'd like to see some of these guys that have one car that are real competitive. Hurry up and get another one. That's going to hurt them. If everyone doesn't believe it, you know, two guys can go out here and get in the same car and can't drive it. I mean, if you got to set the car up for the person. So having the test dates, that's not a lot of benefit there. But the main thing is, if you've got something that works, and you try to add another layer to it, and they work against each other instead of with each other, then it's not going to work. So I've had that 10 years of not doing so well with it, so we found out what really has to work. And, you know, I think the key to the success of a multi-car team is chemistry between the crew chief and driver. Even if you've got all the equipment, all the technology, you know, all the resources in the world, if the chemistry isn't there and you don't give it time to build, you're not going to be successful.
Off the plate, hoping the batter would go chasing. 2 balls, 2 strike count.
A little bit about
base hit to right. The runner might hold a third. That right fielder's really got a strong arm. The right fielder is trying to run it down.
To do what he's done.
He's on his way to the plate.
He's done it in this sport. And
a run crosses the plate. That hit is going to score a runner and Caffeine alive.
If anybody says that Jeff Gordon doesn't have unbelievable talent, then they have been around racing for a long. When you look at Terry, a lot of things that I look at
the Red Sox are going for more speed on the bases.
I look at the stats and I go down the years they've been racing and what they've done, laps they've led and poles and so forth.
He's hitting .337 with 3 home runs and 27 RBIs.
Lap all by himself. Position to win the race and have an engine failure.
Try to make the hit
then I went back and looked at
exactly what
he's done over the years. And I said, you know, he's 38 years, 37 years old.
Sometimes you try to make a hit and chase your hit. That's exactly what you saw right
there. And I met Terry, and when you meet someone and you see the intensity in their eyes, and they want to ride.
The Toronto Blue Jays win it by 2.
Chance, 100 for another opportunity. Boy, that was a great day in our life of our organization when we hired Terry Labonte. He's going to be a factor for a long, long time because I don't see Terry Labonte. He hadn't received as much as he wants yet. He's still hungry for wins and the lead and the championship. So that's good news for us, bad news for the competition.
Next we'll hear from the 1995 NASCAR Winston Cup champion, Jeff Gordon, also won 10 races in 1996.
Then just as B follows A, we'll move to the 1996 champion, also from Hendrick Motorsports, the man of the year, Terry Labonte.
You know, we just kept coming back and finally wound it up in Atlanta.
Looking into the rearview mirror, Rookie of the Year race was a lock early for Johnny Benson. He still had a pretty good first season. 6 top 10s, 21st in the points.
The Blue Jays are trying to win their second game in a row.
More than the award.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Dwayne Kuiper with former 20-game winner Mike Krukow for EA Sports MVP Baseball.
So
And we're set to go. Today's starter, Roy Halladay. This game features the Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays.
With a nickname problem, Jeff Gordon. Okay, he likes Speed Racer, but they didn't like Kid. They didn't like Wonder Boy.
Here's the game's first batter, Johnny Damon.
Catch it.
Catch it, yeah. He certainly gave him a head start this year. Trouble in Daytona, trouble in Rockingham. But then he started that climb. Wasn't long till he's back in the lead of the
And the game begins with the ball.
The guy who plays catch-up is next in the rearview mirror. Hey, from where you guys started, Daytona, Rockingham, to where you ended up,
1-1
it was an amazing season. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's really nothing to be ashamed of at all, I don't think. This team has done a great job, and you know, to start off the season and get down like we did was you know, really something that could have taken a lot of wind out of our sail. But I think at the same time, what it did was pick us back up and took us to the next race. And luckily Richmond came in there. Richmond really saved us to go there and to win that race. Just really escalated the attitude of the guys and myself. I said, all right, hey, this thing has just begun. We got a long time to catch back up.
You get all the way to the end for the last race.
He painted the black on the inside.
Here you are in that catch-up thing. I mean, you're always you're 2 laps down. And you got to fight your way back again. You must have been
out of the zone.
Here's my whole season.
Exactly. Well, it was. The whole season seemed like the whole race at Atlanta.
They asked
where,
the third base umpire,
you know, we start off
and
saying we get 2 laps down right off the start and have to come from behind. Then we've got one of the best cars where we can go out there and get 2 laps back. And now we're up there, you know, battling for the win, leading the race. But then we come up this short. You know, I mean, that is our whole season right there.
Is there a moment in the year, maybe a single moment that you wish you had back?
I think the biggest thing that I would have changed probably and done differently this year was the big wreck at Talladega. You know, Mark and I were battling for a position, and instead of, you know, me being able to just give a little and let him squeeze in there, you know, I pushed it, and he pushed it, you know, for the same reasons, and caused a huge wreck and cost us a lot of points.
Is the championship the only yardstick? Do you subscribe to that T-shirt philosophy that second is the first loser? Can you compare your 96 champions or your 95 championship to this team and make an evaluation? Did you get better? Did you hold your own, or did you lose?
Well, obviously we got better by winning 10 races and still winning a lot of poles, leading over 2,000 laps. I mean, we really are a better team. And I think that, you know, we just weren't as consistent as we were in 95. 95, nothing went wrong. I mean, it's like, other than maybe our last stretch in Atlanta, everything went our way when we needed it to fall in place. And this year, 96, it's like when we really needed it to go our way, it didn't. And, you know, that's just the way things work.
So you don't have to tear your hair out and say, we won all these races, we won all these poles, we've led all these laps, and we didn't get the big prize. You don't have to suffer.
I'm not going to do that, but I think that's something that's going to really make us work hard over the winter to really learn what we can learn from this year and going to 97 pumped up. And by running good at Atlanta, that's going to make this team really strong over the next.
Find some time in the offseason to have your time with that.
Now the season's over, that's what you do. You get away and relax. You don't think about what you could have done or what you did or didn't do. You just think about, hey, you know, it's over. I'm happy about the way this year has gone, and real happy about what's happening for next year, and just live it up for a little while. A little while. I do mean a little while.
Well, everything about losing a championship is frustrating and disappointing, with one little exception. And that would be if you lose it to your team. Terry Labonte is next in the spotlight as the McDonald's NASCAR Winston Cup rearview mirror continues.
And it's 0-1.
McDonald's 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup rearview mirror is presented by McDonald's.
On the ground,
on the track, and in our restaurants. Just watch us cook. And powered by Quaker State. Quaker State Motor Oil for longer engine life.
Drivers checking their rearview mirrors this season saw a lot of different paint jobs behind them. In honor of the Olympics, the Good Wrench Chevy and Kenny Schrader's Bud car paid tribute. And speaking of tributes, Bobby Labonte's Chevy was one of those, all dressed up for owner Joe Gibbs' induction into the Football Hall of Fame. Kyle Petty's Pontiac ended up black after Felix Sabatas felt NASCAR fined him too heavily at Charlotte. Black? Yeah, Felix figured that's how Earnhardt gets away with all that stuff. The Cartoon Network car went black, too. They did it to celebrate Halloween with Scooby-Doo. I don't know. I guess Fred Flintstone wasn't very scary. Silver was a big rage. Rusty Wallace celebrated an anniversary of Richmond, and Terry Labonte went that way of North Wilkesboro and Martinsville. Actually, that's supposed to be iron, like Iron Man, in honor of breaking the Kings' consecutive start streak. Terry wasn't finished there. October Charlotte race, Kellogg's introduces the new Honey Crunch Cornflakes car. Interesting, Terry's only wins, Wilkesboro and Charlotte, were with the special paint job.
In the first.
Well, Benny, they sprayed a lot of pretty paint in the race shops this year, but now it's time for Labonte to go to New York and paint the dam.
And you think he painted red, but that's not like Terry Labonte. He's a guy that goes to work every day and gives his best. And this year, he really gives 100%. Couple of victories, but 7 second-place finishes, almost that many third-place finishes. If you took a picture of Victory Lane when the checkered flag was raised, Labonte was there about 50% of the time.
Well, 12 years after that last championship, he is back at the top of the heap. Terry Labonte.
9 for 9 innings. Pretty impressive.
I got to tell you, man, that hat looks good on you. Congratulations. Thank you. It feels good, too. Your head's just the right size. Right.
There's a roller. He dives.
It's so long between the fights. From 84 to 96, people had written you off. A lot of people had written you off. Was there ever a time during that low point when you questioned your own ability to get back to the top of the heap and to be Winston Cup champion again?
The next batter is Manny Ramirez.
Yeah, probably so. You probably question your own ability.
And here's the pitch.
Sometimes you just wonder if you're ever going to get the opportunity to get back to the team.
And he gets the called strike.
Winning races.
This guy has 5
and
pitches in his repertoire.
And you can go around and look at all the teams out there and
he delivers a called strike.
We got a chance to win the championship at the beginning of the season, but it really gets down to it. You can count all of them on one hand. And, so I knew that when I had a chance to go and hit it most years, that was a great.
And he's safe at first.
You're the ice man. You keep all those emotions inside, the sense of humor. We see glimmers of it, but we don't see it very often. Do you ever cut loose? Do you ever holler, scream, go crazy,
no.
Have a ball?
This lefty is an above-average hitter.
Not in public.
We need to hang out with you. What kind of
situation?
Are you getting a situation where you're comfortable and let yourself go? Is there a side?
Out of the zone, that's a ball.
Yeah.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase your pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
Several times. She said, "You've got everybody fooled."
Catches the plate for a strike.
I'm not probably not near as quiet as I appear, especially around this room.
What a great day that
Misses
last
for a
race
ball.
in Atlanta must have been.
Infield's got to think about playing a double
Never
play
mind
depth
each
right
of
now.
you individually, you and your brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
He started
You know,
the swing,
he was
but
very
managed to
excited
stop.
at Charlotte
He
last
throws a
year.
four-seam fastball, a palm ball,
That was
and
a great night for him over there.
And he takes the walk.
And I think this one here definitely
Positive comes out of this guy Nippler. He's falling behind. He's falling
Were there
behind. He
moments
finally
during
walks
the course of this campaign when you
This
felt
batter
like
is
your
nothing
head slipped
special when he's
away?
facing a righty on the mound.
Definitely. Dover.
Fastball up in the zone for a
lost it at
strike.
Dover up there. Darlington.
Halliday delivers out of the zone, and it's 1-1.
Martinsville, we had a clutch rod fall off. We
Ground
patched
ball
that
up the
back
middle.
together. Came back and finished second in the race. Phoenix, when the
He's on
crash
with a
in
single.
practice, broke my hand.
Got a good pitch to hit
I
right
thought
there.
that
You
was
put it
for
in the
sure
outfield
it.
for a
I
single.
was lucky that we had a week off between Phoenix and Atlanta. I was lucky that it wasn't a road course. I'd have really been in trouble on a road course. There wouldn't have been no way to do that.
Your timing is pretty
Next
good.
at the plate, Mike Lowe.
Big prize money at the end. That's a big difference from the first championship.
Yeah,
Tell me
big,
about
there's
that.
like different zeros in there. The first championship paid $150,000 from RJ.
And a
we
little
also,
low.
boy, we
One
hit
ball
that.
and
We
one
were
strike.
over $100,000 the year before, and now it's 1.5. So
Up high.
that's a
This
big
righty
difference.
tallies strikeouts with
big
great
difference in
regularity
average
every
number.
time he gets out there on the hill.
It makes it
Up the middle,
exciting, but the bottom line is the money's nice.
and they open the scoring with that
You
run.
want to be the champion.
A
You
two
want the
RBI
trophy.
It's a
single.
little different now. I mean, this is
Hit that ball
a
line.
very
There was
big
no
deal.
doubt
Are
that
you
was
ready
big
for that?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Ready to go get him, do all that media work, all that time away from the car, away from the team. That's got to be as tough as anything there is in being with
Well, there'll be a lot more demands on your time. That's part of it.
Stepping in, Johnny Damon. Here's a guy who can
That'll
hold
be
his
fun.
own against right-handed pitching.
What about the long
Halliday
You want
misses
to grow old
1-0.
driving race cars, put that consecutive start record clear off the board where nobody left?
You know, I thought about it.
Upstairs.
It's going to be 40 next week, and I would like to race twice.
Right now, the defense should be thinking, too. The pitcher can really help out by throwing something low on the strike zone. And the walk puts runners on every base.
Well,
Walks always seem to come around and hurt you. He falls behind the batter and just never gets back into the at-bat.
Another one would be great.
One out of the
You know, Benny, I'd add just one afterthought to that, and it would apply equally had Jeff Gordon or Terry Labonte won the championship, and that is that the second title is the one that proves the first one was no fluke. Imagine 12 years it took Terry Labonte to prove he was no flash in the pan. 12 years to get the second championship. It's the modern era record for the time between titles. He didn't lose any of his ability during that time.
He's there,
except that he finally back to the team, which is good to see.
That's exactly right. Terry Labonte's not the guy that's going to jump in front of the camera and say how great he is. He's not going to tell you how great he is. He's going to let his actions on the racetrack speak for themselves. And those 12 years, you're exactly right. He just did not have the equipment to win that championship.
It is time, Mr. Parsons, to close this television program the way we opened it. With your prediction, you correctly called it for 1996. Are you ready to tell us who will be in 1997?
He could be going on this game.
No.
In there for a
I love this
strike.
guy. He's Benny Parsons. I'm Dave Despain. That's the story. It's the McDonald's NASCAR Winston Cup rearview mirror. We hope you enjoyed it. See you next year.
So long, everyone.
Ball outside. Bad idea right there. Trying to get the batter to chase it. Now he's further behind the count. Full count here. He's breaking for second. Heading into the bottom of the second.
The business of owning and operating a race team has often been as unpredictable and dangerous as actually driving the cars. Even the most successful teams have at times been on the brink of collapse. Countless others have disappeared altogether, leaving the rest of us to wonder what went wrong. In Slapshoe's series Liars, Thieves, and Lawyers, we've seen many of the most infamous examples from NASCAR's past and present. But in terms of magnitude, one team's implosion stands out from all the rest.
In the early 2000s, MB2 Motorsports was a consistent, if unspectacular, mid-pack team. They had hired drivers featured on this channel before, including Jerry Nadeau and Johnny Benson Jr. In 2006, MB2 had a new shop at old drivers and began to doubt if they'd ever compete for a championship. But then came a real estate mogul from South Carolina, a man with grand ideas of elevating the team into one of the series' biggest super teams. MB2 thought they were getting a fresh start, a new lease on life, but instead, it was the beginning of the end.
Davis sends it to short. The side is retired in order. After 2 innings, the score is 3-0.
Joe, get the big hug from car owner Jay Fry. And Joe, tell us about that, the Kansas sweep for your team this year. Hey, John Hunter.
Oh my gosh, incredible day. Oh, what a day for the Army, Chevrolet, Valvoline, Centrex, Hendrick Motorsports, building our engines. Awesome, Rick, killer motor, man. Thank you very much.
In May 1996, Rick Hendrick picked up new sponsorship from the M&M Mars Company, who wanted him to start a fourth Winston Cup team. Hendrick wasn't ready to do so, but had some friends who wanted to break into racing, so he directed employee Jay Fry to meet with Reed Morton, Nelson Bowers II, and Tom Beard. To give their team a name, Morton, Bowers, and Beard used the first letter of each of their names, MBB or MB2 Motorsports. MB2 would operate as Hendrick's sister team, using Hendrick engines. They stayed with General Motors, but ran Pontiacs instead of Hendrick's Chevrolets. MB2 signed Derek Cope and went racing in 1997. For nearly 6 full seasons, MB2 developed into a steady mid-pack team, which tended to hire veteran drivers over newcomers. After Cope came Ernie Irvin and Kenny Schrader. Jerry Nadeau joined as a relief driver after Irvin retired in '99 and rejoined the team full-time in 2003. By then, MB2 was a 2-car operation after their 2000 merger with Tyler Jet Motorsports. Nadeau's teammate Johnny Benson Jr. gave MB2 Motorsports its first win at Rockingham. By the end of 2003, both Benson and Nadeau were off the team. Gone along with them was Pontiac, which scaled back their NASCAR program at the end of the year. In 2004, MB2 stayed with General Motors and Hendrick, building Chevrolets for veteran Joe Nemechek and rookie Scott Riggs. Nemechek scored the team their second win in a thrilling last-lap battle with Ricky Rudd.
Coming out of turn 4, white flag this time.
This is good stuff right here. Man, it is.
Mile and a half to go.
Now watch Joe. Joe should be able to drive it way in deep here. If the car doesn't slide up the racetrack too much, he'll be able to hold it, and they'll run side by side down the backstretch.
Joe Nemechek's story is well known. Lost his brother John in a Craftsman truck racing accident at Homestead when Joe was competing in Las Vegas. His family encouraged him to continue racing.
Oh, here comes Rudd. He's got to run, but Nemechek will mirror block him now.
Rudd is a veteran to the apron, but it's Nemechek with the win at Kansas.
Riggs struggled through his rookie season, but rebounded in Speed Weeks 2005.
Jeff Gordon's going to win his third Daytona 500. Kurt Busch, Dale Jr., and Scott Riggs completes a dream week with a fourth-place finish.
On August 22, 2005, Riggs earned the best Cup Series finish of his career. Thanks to the strategy of his new crew chief, Riggs finished runner-up to Jeremy Mayfield in a fuel mileage race at Michigan. His crew chief, Rodney Childers. Yes, that Rodney Childers. Despite their measured improvements, things were changing fast behind the scenes. Bowers bought out Morton and Beard. He held an 80% interest in MB2 Motorsports, with Jay Fry holding the remaining 20%. Then on June 29th came word that Valvoline was leaving MB2. The destination was Evernham Motorsports, the same team Riggs had lost to at Michigan. When that news broke on July 1st, MB2 still wanted to keep both Riggs and Childers, but needed a new sponsor. While the U.S. Army had re-upped with the number 01 team on July 8th, the future of the number 10 team was still very much up in the air. Time ran out on August 27th, just 5 days after Michigan, where Riggs and Childers confirmed they would follow Valvoline to Evernham. While the pair would even take the number 10 with them, they would not get to keep Riggs' rank in owner points. This proved critical under the top 35 rule, which locked the top 35 in owner points into each race. Thus, while Riggs would ultimately fall short of racing his way into the 2006 Daytona 500, both of MB2's cars had guaranteed starting spots. Once again, MB2 signed a veteran and one of the best to ever run at Daytona, two-time 500 winner Sterling Marlin. The 2005 season was his 8th and last for Felix Sabates and Chip Ganassi. On October 26th, he signed a 2-year contract with MB2 as driver of their second team. He'd run the number 14, honoring Marlin's late father, Cuckoo Marlin, who passed away that August. His crew chief would be Doug Randolph, who worked with Scott Riggs before Rodney Childers took over. On November 19th came the elusive sponsorship deal from Waste Management. But unlike Nemechek's full season backing from the Army, Waste Management would only be the primary sponsor for 12 of the 36 races, which was scaling back to an associate for the other 24. The hunt for sponsorship would have to continue into the next year. On February 6, 2006 came word that MB2 would field a third car, bringing back the part-time number 36 that road racer Boris Said had run. This time they would hire still another living legend in Bill Elliott. The car had previously been sponsored by Centrix Auto Finance, but that sponsor would now help keep Marlin's number 14 as a full-time entry. In its place was a company that was sponsoring a NASCAR team for the very first time, a brand that in just 17 months would go from a saving grace to a harbinger of doom. Ginn Clubs and Resorts.
Legally known as Edward R. Ginn, the real estate mogul preferred to go by the nickname Bobby. By 2006, the 57-year-old from South Carolina had been building his empire for decades, but his journey had been anything but smooth. He started working for his father in 1969, building government-funded homes for farmers in Georgia and the Carolinas. He graduated from military school, then majored in business at the University of South Carolina. But when his father became ill, Ginn left school to help with the business. The company had grown rapidly, and by 1975, Ginn had branched out into building condominiums and golf courses. But with this growth came some serious errors in judgment. As Ginn expanded into Florida during the late 70s, he did business with the infamous Butcher brothers, two bankers from Tennessee. When the Butchers were convicted of fraud and sentenced to 20 years in prison, Ginn pleaded ignorance. In 1985, after Congress deregulated the savings and loan industry, Ginn tried to buy out two rival developers in his native South Carolina. The resulting company, Hilton Head Holdings, was so deep in debt that it folded within a year. Soon, all over the low country of South Carolina, cars carried bumper stickers that read, "Honk if Bobby owes you money." In 1988, Ginn declared bankruptcy and moved to Charleston. But Ginn didn't disappear altogether. When he came out of bankruptcy in 1994, he vowed he had learned from his past mistakes and was more careful than ever in selecting his business partners. He found a new partner in the Lubert Alder firm from Philadelphia and established a new base of operations in Celebration, Florida, south of Orlando. There, Ginn incorporated his new business in 1998, the Ginn Company, and set to work on his latest vision, resorts designed for aging baby boomers. Among his brain trusts were golfing legends Tom Watson, Arnold Palmer, and Jack Nicklaus, who helped him design 3 new golf courses. Bobby Ginn is one of the few developers who truly understands the game of golf, Nicklaus said through his spokesperson. He understands the importance and the value of what the golf facility brings to the overall development. According to his website, Ginn reported more than $1 billion in real estate sales for the year of 2004, and he had nearly 30,000 acres of property either in planning or under development. All of this was to boost one of his subsidiaries, Ginn Sports Entertainment, which sought to extend the Ginn brand into professional sports. Building on Ginn's passion for golf, the group had already signed endorsement deals with golf star Annika Sorenstam, and also spread into tennis with professional player Harry Gilbert. But pretty soon, Ginn set his sights on a different sport entirely. For reasons not clearly known, that led him to MB2 Motorsports and the deal to sponsor Bill Elliott and the Great American Race.
Ginn would immediately earn exposure at Daytona. Not only did Bill Elliott qualify for the Daytona 500, but he locked himself in with his qualifying speed. He also finished 17th in his Gatorade Duel, much to the chagrin of Derek Cope and Mike Skinner, who believed they were locked in a photo finish for the final transfer spot. Elliott rolled off 33rd, led on lap 126, and finished in 19th. For Joe Nemechek and Sterling Marlin, it was a race to forget. In the qualifiers, Nemechek blew an engine and Marlin wrecked. Both wrecked again in the 500, finished 33rd and 34th. Nevertheless, Ginn stepped up his sponsorship with MB2. Since Elliott's run was a one-off, he turned his attention to Marlin's number 14, putting Ginn logos on his car at Martinsville, Daytona, and Charlotte. Ginn would also add a 4th race, the May 11th round at Darlington. The Daytona car would be designed by 3 teenage campers from Camp Bonky Creek, a sister camp of Victory Junction for seriously ill children. Easter Seal sponsored the deck lid of this car, a charity selected after a go-kart race between Marlin and Bill Elliott. Ginn also agreed to sponsor MB2's development driver Craig Kinzer in the Craftsman Truck Series, starting at Martinsville, and their Drive for Diversity candidate Jesus Hernandez. Both had already yielded results. On July 15th, Hernandez became the first Hispanic driver to win at Hickory, while Kinzer had won the ARCA race at Talladega from the pole. Then on July 8th came even bigger news. Bobby Ginn was investing in MB2 Motorsports, and as always, the developer went big. On July 26th, Ginn confirmed that he had purchased Nelson Bauer's entire 80% interest in the team, leaving only the 20% already owned by Chief Operating Officer Jay Fry. This immediately solved 2 problems the team was facing. As part of the acquisition, Ginn would fully sponsor Sterling Marlin for another 10 races in 2006. Ginn also declared a rumored merger with DEI was off the table. Jay Fry said, "It seems MB2 has the potential for eventually keeping pace with title-caliber powerhouses such as Hendrick Motorsports and Roush Racing." He added that Ginn's investment would also make it easier for the team to land additional sponsors. Ginn wasn't the first person to invest so heavily in a NASCAR team. Often the best way for an outsider to break into NASCAR was to purchase a team that was on the verge of closing. In 1999, Jim Matei and John Porter purchased the remaining assets of Jeffrey Bodine's struggling owner-driver team to form Matei Motorsports. The next year, Jack Birmingham bought Bahari Racing to form Eel River Racing. But in most of those cases, aspiring owners bought single-car teams. Ginn took on a 2-car team and looked to expand it even further. He wanted to run 4 teams in 2007, adding 2 drivers to join Marlin and Nemechek. He did so believing NASCAR's new car of tomorrow would level the playing field. Bobby Ginn's first race as a NASCAR Cup Series team owner was the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis. His cars ran 24th and 31st. It wasn't the best outcome, but Ginn was already shopping for drivers.
1 year after his Salute to You tour, Mark Martin was still running full-time in the Cup Series for Roush Racing. He again made noise about scaling back to a part-time effort in 2007, but in May he clarified that he wanted that schedule to include the All-Star race. For much of the season, the press hounded Mark Martin on 2 questions. Who would he drive for, and who would take over his old ride at Roush? On June 5th, Mark denied rumors that he would be driving for Robert Yates Racing, including one rumor that he'd even buy the team. Benny Ertl, Mark Martin's business manager, denied this. On August the 13th, Mark Martin firmly denied that he would be returning as an owner-driver, which had been a disaster for him in his first season in the sport. August 26th saw new rumors of a ride with No Fear Racing, the Frankie Stoddard-owned team which ran Roush equipment with Boris Said driving. Even Michael Waltrip Racing was in the conversation, although they said they couldn't accommodate Mark Martin's part-time schedule. Well, yet. As to Mark Martin's replacement, the driver had been Todd Cleaver. Cleaver had been rumored to take over for Mark as early as June 24th, though on May 16th he was in the hot seat. and there were rumors that he'd be let go by Roush Racing due to poor performance. On the 4th of July came news that Cleaver would make his Cup debut in a 5th car for Roush Racing, the 06 at Chicagoland. Cleaver finished 28th, his first of 7 planned races before going full-time in 2007. On August 19th, Mark seemed certain Cleaver was the guy. The 6 car is set right now, he said. Todd's going to drive the car. The whole plan for 2006 has been to work as hard as we could to get Todd ready to take over the 6 car. We're still doing that. Martin would be even more firm on September the 1st, when he insisted wherever he went, he wasn't going to drive Roush's number 6 in 2007. I've never once this year thought or considered driving it again in 2007, he said. I've driven it 19 years. That's enough for the 6 car to me. Cleaver, however, wasn't so sure. The rumors are just that. They're speculation, he said. In all honesty, I've talked to Mark about this. I'm worried about this weekend. I'm not really worried about next year. I'm very realistic. I live for the weekend. Rumors are rumors, and if I go out and win the Busch race this weekend, they all seem to disappear. The plans are still that I will be driving the 6 car next year. On October 5th, with the future of the 6 car now a toss-up between Cleaver and David Reagan, NASCAR.com broke the most surprising news of all. Mark Martin would drive for Bobby Ginn.
While his team wasn't performing all that strong on the track, Bobby Ginn was hard at work preparing for 2007. On September 20th, Jay Fry confirmed the team was interested in hiring a Busch Series driver who was outperforming for Team Renzi, Regan Smith. Gary Dehart became director of shop operations. The team would also hire motocross star Ricky Carmichael to a driver development deal, joining a now crowded trio with Craig Kinzer and Jesus Hernandez. In December, Ginn would bring his group to a test in Lakeland, Florida. On October 6th, one day after NASCAR.com broke the news, Ginn confirmed he had landed Mark Martin for his first part-time season in 2007. He would drive the U.S. Army Chevrolet, bumping Joe Nemechek to a new third Cup team, the number 13. Sterling Marlin would remain in the number 14, resulting in perhaps the oldest multi-car team in NASCAR history. Nemechek was 43, Martin was 47, and Marlin was 49. By joining the team, Martin's own driver development program would join Ginn's, adding to the roster Matt Bowers and Mark's son Matt Martin, both 15 years old. Ginn denied rumors that the team would switch from Chevrolet to Ford, and also denied that Martin would gain a part ownership of the team. Martin's schedule would cover 20 races in 2007, including the Budweiser Shootout and the All-Star Race. He would later agree to continue to run part-time for the team in 2008. Martin would then serve as driver coach in the remaining races, where Regan Smith would pilot the number 01. Ford was less than thrilled that one of their biggest names had joined the Bowtie Brigade. Among them were Dan Davis, Ford's director of racing technology. Owners such as Bobby Ginn are willing to pay an enormous salary for a part-time driver, he said. On November 18th, Jack Roush had bought back Martin's share of the number 17 team, for which Matt Kenseth drove. While MB2's previous arrangement with the U.S. Army would continue through 2007, Ginn remained vague on how well-funded both his number 13 and number 14 teams would be. If we don't have a full sponsor, it'll be the company, he said of Nemechek's number 13. Of Marlin's team, he only said, I think Waste Management is back, and we've got a couple of others that are close. On November 10th, when Ginn confirmed their crew chief lineups, he said only that team sponsors for the number 13 and number 14 will be announced at a later date. Even more troubling, both Marlin and Nemechek were now on the wrong side of the top 35 line. Marlin finished the year 74 points out of the top 35, while Nemechek's new team didn't have any owner points to rely on. Poor runs like they had in the 2006 duels would mean an early trip home. On November 21st, 2006, MB2 Motorsports was no more. The 3-car team was renamed Ginn Racing. Curiously, the domain name GinnRacing.com had been active since at least October 22nd.
During the offseason, it was anybody's guess as to how Ginn Racing would perform in 2007, but other mid-pack teams seemed to like the team's idea of bringing in outside investors. On January 26th, just after losing their flagship driver, Jack Roush said he was close to finalizing a deal with the Red Sox owner, John Henry, ultimately rebranding his team as Roush Fenway Racing. Evernham Motorsports were also seeking funding, and would find it from another sports executive in George Gillette. The result would become Gillette Evernham Motorsports. Back at Ginn's 144,000 square foot shop, a building 3 times the size of MB2's original shop, preparations were ongoing for a 4-car lineup at Daytona. Waste Management was still on Marlin's car for just 12 races, but on January 22nd came word that Panasonic had signed on for the remaining 24. Joe Nemechek finally attracted sponsorship of his own, as Certainteed would back the number 13. But only for half of the 36-race schedule. The 4th car, the number 39, was for Regan Smith to attempt his series debut. Ginn himself would sponsor Smith's run, a preview for his upcoming starts in the 01. Ginn also spared no expense in promoting his 4-car lineup for Daytona. After Florida was hit by a series of tornadoes, he auctioned off a travel package to the Daytona 500. The winner was Ocala, Florida resident Myron Bolin, who would be on hand for the Great American Race. Ginn matched his winning bid of $13,600 and donated it to the American Red Cross. A massive 61-car entry list contested the 43 starting spots. Sterling Marlin put up a monster lap in qualifying, running 8th fastest overall. Most critically, he was second to David Reagan among the drivers not locked in, meaning he was locked into the 500 based on speed and wouldn't have to worry about the qualifying race later. By pure chance, all 4 of Ginn's cars would race each other in the second Gatorade duel. This meant that both Mark Martin and Sterling Marlin had a chance to help Joe Nemechek and Regan Smith take the final 2 transfer spots. With 3 laps to go, Marlin was running in 4th place, while Joe Nemechek was in 11th, racing Paul Menard for the last transfer spot. Further back, Mark Martin was trying to lead the way for Regan Smith, when Smith made contact with Jamie McMurray. As Smith fell out of contention, Marlin was then told to back off to help Nemechek. Nemechek finished 9th, with Marlin 12th, and Mark Martin 14th. Regan Smith hung on to take 19th, but would have to wait another year to make his first start in the Daytona 500. On February 18th, the day of the big race itself, Joe Nemechek started 18th, with Sterling Marlin in 38th. But it was Mark Martin who started 26th that made the race an instant classic. Martin took the lead with 24 laps to go and stayed there through 2 multi-car pileups that forced the 500 into overtime.
White flag, 1 lap to go.
To the white, man. Coming to the white. Single foul behind him.
Front 4, single foul.
There they go. They got to go. They got to get Mark. They got to move him somehow.
Gets back to that yellow line right around the bottom, all the way through turn 1 and 2.
Mark Martin is driving the race of his life, and there's nobody that's better at holding people off at Daytona.
And they're going to flag back a little bit. Is he going to get help? Is he going to come? He's looking.
Back behind you.
He almost squeezed Harvick into the wall, and here comes Harvick, the 29, with Matt Kenseth.
Oh, Mark got loose. Mark got loose.
And Harvick's getting a run off turn 4. It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line. Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag. Harvick. Kevin Harvick wins the Daytona 500. We got one car on his roof coming across the start-finish line.
They're still wrecking. They're wrecking everywhere.
It was a crushing disappointment not only for Martin, but the rest of Ginn Racing. When the final wreck began, Sterling Marlin and Joe Nemechek went from battling for 14th to a race for 9th. That changed when Casey Mears spun across the track. Nemechek escaped to finish 9th, but Marlin, trapped between Mears and a flipping Clint Boyer, had to settle for 19th.
The next week in Fontana on February 25th, Mark Martin finished 5th. Since Daytona winner Kevin Harvick ran 17th, this gave Martin the points lead by 5 over his former teammate Jeff Burton. It also marked the first time the former MB2 Motorsports team ever took the point lead since they were founded in 1996. Martin then kept the momentum going, finishing 5th again at Las Vegas and 10th at Atlanta. By then, he still had an 8-point lead over Jeff Gordon. The next race was to be held March 25th at Bristol. This is not only the first race for NASCAR's Car of Tomorrow, but the first scheduled start for Regan Smith in the 01. Once again, Mark Martin was asked countless times whether he'd change his mind and continue to run full-time. On February 28th, Martin said Ginn wouldn't pressure him to do so. "That's not going to happen," he said. "He won't do that. That's why I'm happy here. I'm really in a good place in my life. I feel I've taken stock of my career and my personal life, and I'm really blessed with all the things I've got going." However, on March 3rd, Ginn said he'd put Regan Smith in the number 39 at Bristol if Martin elected to stay in the 01. He said this even after withdrawing the number 39 at both Fontana and Las Vegas. Sure enough, when the series rolled into Thunder Valley, Mark Martin wasn't on the entry list, but on pit road, coaching Regan Smith. Smith qualified 12th and finished 25th. Not among the starters was Joe Nemechek. After finishing 17th or better in 3 of his first 4 races, Nemechek was handed his first DNQ since the very same race in 1998. Sterling Marlin, meanwhile, finished no better than 17th in his first 8 races. His best run came on April 29th at Talladega, where once again he had a fast superspeedway car. Marlin qualified 4th and led 16 laps.
Mike, great note on Sterling Marlin. He's led 1,004 laps in restrictor plate racing, but that is the first lap he's led on a plate race in the last 12 events.
But in the end, he finished 16th. While Waste Management was a listed sponsor for Marlin's Talladega ride, it had been noticeably stripped of its familiar green paint scheme and was left virtually unmarked. While Bobby Ginn had signed Principal Financial Group on March 5th, both as a primary for Martin and as an associate for the other two teams, it appeared they were having as much trouble keeping sponsors as they were finding them. Panasonic, which signed for 24 races on Sterling Marlin's car, inexplicably stopped after the 7th race at Texas. This forced Ginn to put his own branding on the car for the May 13th race at Darlington. That same Darlington race saw Nemechek debut a new primary sponsor of his own in Hire America, the U.S. branch of a Chinese appliance company. Reportedly, the deal came about after Brian France and other NASCAR dignitaries made a business trip to China. Certainty, Nemechek's primary sponsor from the opening of the season, wouldn't run as the primary again until Chicagoland on July 15th. Undaunted, Bobby Ginn kept the news positive. On May 12th, the day before Darlington, Jayski reported Ginn was trying to hire Dale Earnhardt Jr., whose impending departure from DEI was now all but certain. "We would stretch as hard as we could stretch to do it," said Ginn. "We want the best, the absolute best. And I love the idea that Dale wants to win championships. He could accomplish that here with us. We're in play." Jr. had also been courted by Joe Gibbs Racing, though the team made clear Budweiser couldn't be his sponsor. Ginn, however, said he'd welcome Budweiser with open arms. But by May 27th, Ginn had not yet spoken to Jr. and only had so-called exploratory conversations with his sister Kelly. Ginn also shored up his current driver lineup. By June 1st, Mark Martin added more races to his part-time schedule. Pocono on August 5th, Richmond on September 8th, and Dover on September 23rd. But he said he wanted to stay part-time in 2008. On June 25th, Sterling Marlin said he also wanted to go part-time that year. Strangely, it was rumored that Marlin would not do so with Ginn, but with Furniture Row Racing, which planned to add a second team. Taking Marlin's place in the number 14 would be Regan Smith, whose schedule in the number 01 increased on June 7th. On that day, news broke that Smith would run at least one Cup, Busch, Truck, or ARCA Series race for each remaining weekend in 2007. Jay Fry said on July 1st that the team planned to expand to 4 cars, and quote, "hopefully 2 or 3 years from now, we have 3 or 4 20-something younger guys in the cars." One of these guys was a driver who'd been spurned by his current team.
Just a second ago, under this caution, Denny Hamlin's car brought down pit road by Eric Almirola, giving up 3rd place to make the driver change.
I got to tell you, I think that's a bad decision. They're doing this for the sponsor, I hear. But you know what? This kid, Eric Almirola's been running great. It looks like they're going to go down a lap right now for sure. I don't like this. This whole thing is a real tough deal. He's got to be upset. He's doing a great job out there.
It seems like there was some kind of miscommunication, too, because we heard him talking about earlier they were going to leave Eric Almirola in the car, but somebody must have made the decision higher up, maybe, to take him out of the car.
On June 23rd, Eric Almirola was famously booted from his Busch Series ride at Joe Gibbs Racing after leading the first 43 laps at Milwaukee. Denny Hamlin, now a fixture in the Cup Series, took over and won the race. As early as June 25th came rumors that Almirola was leaving JGR. J.D. Gibbs disagreed, saying Almirola was a huge part of our future since they developed him since his late model days. But that relationship effectively ended on July 16th, when word leaked that Almirola requested a release from JGR to drive for Bobby Ginn. This was confirmed 2 days later. Almirola would share the remaining 2007 schedule for the 01 ride with both Mark Martin and Regan Smith. It's initially reported Almirola would debut at Watkins Glen, but that gets pushed back to Loudon in September, as Smith has more road course experience. Almirola will also have to run his final 5 Busch Series races for JGR. But by the time Almirola joined Ginn Racing, it appeared he boarded a sinking ship. During practice at New Hampshire on June 30th, both Marlin and Nemechek arrived in cars that were jet black without any sponsors. The team admitted they suddenly had a, quote, available inventory of unsold sponsorship for the second half of the season. This news couldn't have come at a worse time. Not only had Ginn tried to hire Dale Earnhardt Jr., but also Kyle Busch, who that same day was revealed to have been in negotiations with the team. On July 9th, Jay Fry admitted that only the U.S. Army had re-signed with Ginn for 2008, and the 2 sponsorship deals had fallen through. The team shut down their Busch Series program, cutting short a season where Regan Smith had been running 5th in the point standings. 30 employees were let go, including Sterling Marlin's spotter. On July 16th, one day after the race in Chicagoland, the rumor resurfaced that DEI was interested in buying Ginn Racing. Over the off week, leading into the All-State 400 at the Brickyard, the team reorganized. Regan Smith replaced Marlin in the number 14. The word was that Joe Nemechek wouldn't even start the number 13 unless sponsorship was found by July 27th, the Friday before the race in Indianapolis. On July 18th, Nemechek saw the writing on the wall. "I don't think that Bobby and Jay ever thought it was going to be that hard to find sponsors," he said. "It says a lot for the people who are working at Ginn. We've been able to accomplish a lot. To see it all kind of stop and go away, whatever may happen with the points, it's just disappointing." The next day, Ginn is vague on the status of his team. "First of all, I'm not going to speculate on what's going to happen," he said. "Things are happening so fast right now that we are preserving every option we have. I don't intend for that car to sit still. It's got value to me or to someone, but we right now, and this is not dodging the question, we have not made a decision as to what we're going to do. As Joe said, both Joe and Sterling are both still under contract. I have sponsors sitting in my office right now, so we are still working on trying to sponsor it." Throughout its existence, Ginn Racing's fortunes seemed to rise and fall at Indianapolis. In 1998, the track saw Ernie Irvan give them their first pole. In 2000, Aaron's Rents signed on to save their second team from collapse. It was there again in 2006 that Bobby Ginn became the team's new owner. But in a cruel twist, it was there in 2007 the team met its end.
Now, breaking news this week, how about some merger activities? DEI acquires the 01 and 14 Ginn Racing teams, and we're going to explain what all that involves. The owner points transfer to the number 15 of Paul Menard. Those were the points coming off of the 14 of Sterling Marlin. The future of those two car numbers remains unclear, and Mark Martin and the young driver Eric Almirola will split time in the 01, which now goes over to DEI.
Wednesday, July 25th, 2007. The Brickyard is still 4 days away. Ginn Racing will not be around to see it. The day before, David Newton at ESPN reported that DEI had merged with Ginn, and that Mark Martin's 01 would be a DEI car powered by a DEI and Richard Childress engine at Indianapolis. This is confirmed on the 25th. DEI will take over the Ginn shop and rename it DEI West. Ginn's number 13 and number 14 teams are no more. While Furniture Row Racing sought to purchase the number 13's 34th place ranking to lock their 78 car into the race at Indy, NASCAR tells DEI they aren't allowed to sell it to them. Instead, the team is simply scrubbed from the ranks, and the Wood brothers, 36th in points, move into the top 35. The owner points to the number 14, 30th in the standings, moved to DEI's number 15 team, giving Paul Menard a guaranteed starting spot and costing Regan Smith his shot to race at Indy. DEI will vigorously deny a rumor that John Menard helped finance the merger to get his son into the top 35. It was never contemplated, nor was the request ever made to John Menard to be a potential player in this transaction, says John Story, DEI's vice president. Teresa Earnhardt has done well for herself over many, many years.
Mark Martin, of course, in the news for that merger with DEI. He's actually now a DEI driver. That means Dale Earnhardt Jr. is now your actual teammate. Have you had a chance to talk to him, Mark?
Yes, I have, and I'm excited. He's excited, even though it's for a short period of time. It's a landmark, I think, in my career, and we're excited about it. Look forward to getting on the racetrack here.
A lot of questions, a lot of talk about these teams now merging, going to 3-4 car teams. What does that mean for this sport, and do you think this is a good thing, what happened this week?
It's a good thing for DEI. It's a good thing for Ginn Racing. It's the trend of the future. You're going to see more and more of it. Mexico Cup continues to get more and more competitive, more and more expensive, and the way you're going to be competitive and survive in this business is consolidate, bring in partners that can bring things to the table. And I feel like that the U.S. Army team and Ryan Pemberton can bring performance things to the table to DEI, and certainly DEI can do the same to the 01 team. So we're going to be stronger going forward. Unfortunately, it is going to take a while for that to be integrated. We're in two different chapters this weekend and can't even hardly talk to one another about the cars. It's amazing how much different you can have cars and have them both run well. And Pocono will be somewhat the same. It's come so fast without warning that we'll pretty much have to go with Pocono with the plan. But as we move forward, we will start to combine and integrate everyone's systems.
The closing of the number 14 team is a huge blow to both Regan Smith and Sterling Marlin. While Smith still runs the Truck Series race at IRP and again sponsored number 47 where he finishes 8th, Marlin can't even get Ginn on the phone. I haven't talked to Bobby Ginn. They haven't returned my calls to my lawyers. They're just kind of leaving me hanging. I'd like to get something worked out and at least finish out the year with somebody if I could. This lack of a response keeps Marlin out of a job. He has offers to drive for other teams, but can't accept any of them until Ginn calls him back to let him out of his contract. Joe Nemechek apparently doesn't have this problem. He gets a last-minute ride from E&M Motorsports, a single-car team who had originally entered their number 08 Dodge for John Andretti. When Andretti had other obligations, they brought on Nemechek, who was still wearing his Ginn Racing uniform as he prepared to qualify.
And what a week. He lost the ride in a shakeup at Ginn Racing. Then when they merged with DEI, found himself on the outside looking in, then got a call to run this car at Indy. And now, Joe, you have to get into this race on your time trial speed. What are you thinking right now?
Wow, what a battle. You know, it's definitely an uphill battle. But, hey, this John Carter and this whole group, they give me an opportunity. I mean, I could be at home sitting there watching it on TV, so at least I'm here trying, making an effort. And, you know, this group only runs a few races a year. Good people, but, you know, when you see what all these other big teams are doing, it's hard for a little guy to keep up. But we were pretty good at the beginning of practice. Just we had a couple of issues right in the middle of practice, and we never picked up any more speed. So I just got to hit my marks. You know, Ernie Elliott built a good motor for it. First time for me being in a Dodge, so we're looking forward to it.
Unfortunately, he misses the show. As he does, he entertains the possibility of bringing back his Busch Series team, Nemco Motorsports. In the race, Mark Martin finishes 6th despite gearbox trouble. The merger has another immediate consequence. Kyle Busch believes the merger took up too much of the DEI executive's time, and that he, quote, never felt any warmth from the organization. Although he may still have a chance to take over Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s ride at DEI, he declines and takes up Jr.'s own missed opportunity at Joe Gibbs Racing.
On August 4th, 2007, Slugger Labbe gives the body count. The merger between DEI and Ginn Racing has cost 124 people their jobs. Of them, only 30 have found work so far. Among them are Jay Fry and Ricky Carmichael, who both joined DEI. By September 10th, Labbe and another crew chief will both sue Ginn in Cabarrus County, North Carolina. Sterling Marlin and Joe Nemechek will also file claims of their own, seeking damages in addition to their $1.2 million owed in base salary. DEI will be named as the defendant, but the team points their fingers back at Ginn. On September 12th, Ginn says he's surprised at the lawsuits. Sterling and Joe's contracts run through the end of the year, and I have paid them through August. All of their winnings and salary per the contract, he said. And I intend to pay through the end of the year. I always have. Apparently, Marlin also gets his phone call from Ginn. He tests with Phoenix Racing after the lawsuit is filed and is slated to race for the team at Talladega. Peter Suspenzo becomes the new crew chief for Robbie Gordon on September 26th. As for Jay Fry, his stay with DEI doesn't last long. By November 11th, he's job hunting again, trying to join Red Bull Racing. 3 more former Ginn employees have a short stay at DEI. On October 13th, during the fall race at Charlotte, a plane flies a banner reading, "How much does Bobby Ginn owe you?" Eerily reminiscent of the bumper stickers made after Ginn's failed Hilton Head deal back in the 1980s. DEI finds out that the banner was paid for by 3 employees at Hibbs. DEI isn't amused and all 3 employees are fired soon after. While Ginn reported that back-owed bonuses would be paid by direct deposit in early October, the 4 lawsuits aren't settled until November. On the 6th, Nemechek, Labbe, and Suspenzo's cases are dismissed after settlements. Marlin settles on the 12th and follows through on his plans to scale back to part-time. He will run 10 races in 2008 for Phoenix Racing. Joe Nemechek will go full-time for Furniture Row Racing, the team that was denied his owner points with Ginn. Ryan Pemberton, who served as a crew chief for both Ginn and DEI, leaves the team at season's end to join Michael Waltrip Racing. By the end of 2008, Ginn's empire would crumble after defaulting on a $675 million loan. Foreclosures, bankruptcies, and lawsuits would dog the developer for years to come. Many of his developments are still around, but they're under new ownership, obviously.
Twice in his brief career, Bobby Ginn changed the face of NASCAR team ownership. In 2006, he single-handedly created a new business model for mid-pack teams. Many in the middle of the field would seek outside investors to stay open. Roush Fenway Racing, Gillette Evernham Motorsports, and Rob Kaufman's investment in Michael Waltrip Racing. But just 1 year later, Ginn's collapse set off a much more disturbing trend. They were the first merger, but far from the last. In late 2008, just over a year after their merger with Ginn Racing, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated would merge with Chip Ganassi Racing. From 7 cars, there were now just 3. Among the many let go was Paul Menard, who joined Yates Racing as it merged with Hall of Fame Racing, and place of 3 cars, there were only 2. Bill Davis Racing shut down completely, as did Petty Enterprises. What we now know as Richard Petty Motorsports was merely a 1-car expansion of the Gillette Evernham team. Only 2 new fully funded rides sprung up for Speed Weeks 2009, a 4th team for Richard Childress Racing, and the full-time debut of Front Row Motorsports. And who would have thought, 11 years later, Front Row's number 34 is just one of 4 teams in this graphic that's still operating today. When it was all said and done, the number of full-time teams dropped to just 41. The thankless task of filling the field went to a handful of new start and park teams, many of them staffed by crew members who lost their jobs. Among these was Joe Nemechek's single-car outfit, Nemco Motorsports. Among the drivers left in the cold by these mergers were Regan Smith and Eric Almirola, who each saw their first full-time ride shot out from under them. Smith took over the 0-1 after the U.S. Army joined Mark Martin in the vacated number 8 for 2008. Smith won Rookie of the Year, and yes, also this race at Talladega. But like Joe Nemechek and Sterling Marlin before him, Smith would lose his ride and end up at Furniture Row Racing. That same season, Almirola took over Mark Martin's ride in the number 8, but the full-time effort only made it to the spring race at Texas before it too shut down. It wasn't until 2012, when he drove for the reincorporated Richard Petty Motorsports, that he'd ever returned to full-time competition. It's plain to see the legacy of Ginn Racing lives on to this very day. So was Ginn Racing one of the sport's biggest frauds, or was Bobby Ginn himself merely in over his head, or is there some other explanation? Make sure you mention it in the comments below. A huge thanks to Slapshoes for collaborating with me on this video. I put together this script, and Mark Martin came up in it so much, and with his series on the Liars, Thieves, and Lawyers, check out his channel and the links below here. Had to make sure to bring him on board there. I think this is a great way to kind of tie together both the content on my channel as well as his. Definitely check out more videos on my channel as well as his, and also at NASCAR Man History's channel, where I do narrations on his videos. More of those links are again in the description below. Thank you again so much for watching, everyone, and stay tuned for more content here on YouTube.
At the midway point of the 2019 season, trouble suddenly struck the teams of Joe Gibbs Racing and Extreme Concepts Incorporated. Their primary sponsor, IK9, abruptly missed a payment, and the decals and banners on their cars and haulers came off, just as things were starting to get underway at the July Daytona race. However, just a few hours later, the team scrambled to put the logos back up where they belonged. As it turned out, the driver slated to start the races there at the track in the Xfinity and the Cup Series, Jeffrey Earnhardt, had backed out of his contract with IK9 out of the blue. IK9 is a dog training service that prepares service dogs for police, other official contractors, and the disabled. With that pretty slim market, it wouldn't have been too surprising if IK9 missed their payments due to lack of funds, but as soon as Jeffrey Earnhardt skipped town, they were good and made their payment. What had happened was, Jeffrey had signed with JGR and XCI to run races for them in the top 2 divisions on the promise that he'd be promoted to a full-time Cup ride in 2020. But when Christopher Bell's name started getting slung around for that, Jeffrey backed out and dropped all of his sponsorship obligations immediately. Now with no driver, XCI and IK9 understandably halted their plans. JGR scrambled to find replacement drivers, but the damage had been done. XCI ceased its Cup program after just 1 start at Talladega just a few months prior, and IK9 massively scaled down his sponsorship obligations for 2020. This time a driver, not a sponsor, had torpedoed an organization. A reversal of the usual course of events. But while we're on the topic, let's explore some of the worst sponsors, team owners, and track promoters in NASCAR history. This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legend. I had to go in there for a second, didn't I? No, but for real though. This video is supported by NordVPN and viewers like you via Patreon. Thank you guys so much. Sponsorships are the lifeblood of NASCAR. Without them, we wouldn't be able to fund the big advancements we've made in the sport. We'd still be stuck on dirt and racing would look like this. Well, I don't know, that actually looks pretty cool to me. Anyway, the point is, we're able to put on races across the country and hurtle around in state-of-the-art facilities at ridiculous speeds because big companies want to get their name out there, and hood space on a mean-looking V8 monster is pretty tempting real estate. But in everyone's haste to sell off body panels and naming rights to the highest bidder, sometimes ne'er-do-wells slip through the cracks trying to get clout or just some free advertising. Sponsorships are built on trust, and unfortunately unfortunately, some people come along and abuse that trust for their own ends. And then more often than not, just bafflingly drop off the face of the earth shortly after they've been caught. Mark Martin almost had his entire career nixed in his rookie season after Apache Stove agreed to sponsor him full-time in 1982, and then just never paid him a dime. You might think that a wood-burning stove company stepping up and spending tens of thousands of dollars to sponsor a NASCAR Cup Series team was odd, but they had sponsored Terry Labonte in his rookie campaign just 3 years prior. Mark, an owner-driver in a partnership with Bud Reeder, took the deal and then, once the checks bounced, scrambled to find funding, taking money from anyone who wanted some cheap advertising. Midway through the season, Mark had everyone he knew begging him to drop out of the series and cut his losses. His debts were mounting and he was going to end up broke, but Mark stubbornly continued on. If he could just win the Rookie of the Year award, then the cash prize at the end of the year would pay for everything, and he'd be good. However, after a late season collapse, failing to finish 5 of the last 8 races, Jeff Bodine pulled away and ended up with the check and the ticket to the year-end banquet at the Waldorf Astoria. Now severely in debt and with no other sponsors knocking on the door, Mark sold off his share of the team and started over from scratch. In 1983, he signed with Jim Stacy and drove for him for the first 7 races of the season, before parting ways with him too. Why? Well, Jim Stacy wasn't paying him either. Mark Martin quit his dreams of being a NASCAR star after the 1984 season and dropped back to the Midwestern-centered ASA series. But, as we all know, he'd be back in a big way once the 90s rolled around. So let's talk about Jim J.D. Stacy. By 1983, the California real estate mogul had become quite notorious for just not paying people he worked with. In 1981, he had bought Rod Osterland's number 2 team, with star driver and defending champion Dale Earnhardt. However, Dale was the first to get bit by JD's nefarious ways and defected over to Richard Childress Racing after that. You probably know how well that turned out for him. After that, JD went to a 2-car operation and proceeded to have a revolving door of drivers big and small come through his shop. Jim Sauter, Joe Ruttman, Morgan Shepherd, Tim Richmond, and many others. Some got paid, some didn't. Okay, so he was a reckless car owner, big whoop, right? Well, that wasn't the only way he managed to screw people over. He had a penchant, almost an addiction, to sponsoring as many cars as he could in any given race. He just loved seeing his name plastered everywhere. To be fair, I mean, who doesn't though, right? In the 1982 Daytona 500, he sponsored no less than 7 entries, and sometimes he would bring that count as high as 8. But as the season dragged on, he became more and more spotty with his payments, and eventually found himself in legal trouble. As it turned out, the real estate market over in California was imploding, and he was losing money fast. Honest team owners like Harry Raniere, Junie Donlevy, and Billy Hagan, who had been fixtures in the sport for over a decade, found themselves struggling to meet their basic payments after JD's checks bounced. And they'd struggle for the rest of the decade and eventually bow out by the time the 90s rolled around. Everywhere he went, J.D. Stacy seemed to kill everything he touched. He sold his team before the 1984 season kicked off and dipped out of the sport entirely almost as suddenly as he had come in. While a bad sponsorship deal can kill a career in the cradle, it can also send a legendary driver into retirement well before his time. Darrell Waltrip had unknowingly won his final race of his career at the Southern 500 in 1992 and struggled to keep pace with the field as an owner-driver throughout the 90s. At the end of the 1997 season, his longtime sponsor Western Auto had backed out, and he was looking for a new one to foot the bill. Speedblock, a brand of fast-setting concrete, stepped up, and DW quickly agreed to their terms in a handshake deal. He made the first 5 races of 1998 sporting their colors, but then he found out that it's always better to have a multi-million-dollar sponsorship deal in writing. Speedblock never sent him a single check. Now in 6-figure debt and his best years behind him, Darrell sold his beloved team and all of his assets to Tyler Beverly, who merged it with International Sports Management, another team Beverly had bought. But unbeknownst to either of them, they had just inflamed the tensions in the infamous Tabasco fiasco from the previous entry in this series. Eventually, in a cruel twist of fate, Tyler Beverly's new team, Tyler Jet Motorsports, tapped Darrell Waltrip to drive what were essentially his old cars. However, going into the 2000 season, Tyler needed a new driver and a new sponsor. Johnny Benson was selected, and Lycos, an early internet search engine, signed up to sponsor the endeavor. Part of the deal was about $5 million in Lycos bucks, which was basically free banner ads on Lycos' website. But how Lycos determined the ad rates was pretty fishy, and as it turned out, they just weren't displaying those ads they had promised at all. Tyler Beverly had named his race team Tyler Jet Motorsports because he ran a jet sales company and was hoping the ads would drive more business his way. Tyler eventually sued, but before a settlement could be reached, he sold off the team to MB2 Motorsports, who were more interested in racing than selling commercial aircraft. And they actually got Johnny Benson his very first career win. The Lycos debacle ended up being the very first nail in the coffin for Tyler Beverly, as he was brought under investigation for money laundering in 2004. In actuality, Tyler had never gotten enough money from Lycos to fund the race team, and was actually laundering money from his jet sales company to finance the whole operation. He was convicted, sent to prison, got out, and then got bopped again in 2017 for tax evasion. Once a grifter, always a grifter, I guess. Alright, so shady sponsors are bad for teams, no surprise there. But what about sponsors that are great for teams but screw over their customers? Let's talk a minute about Advocare. Advocare is a multi-level marketing company that primarily sold nutritional supplements. Now, multi-level marketing means that somebody at the top sells the products to people down the line. Then in turn, those people sell more stuff to people lower in the line, and a portion of all of the money from successive sales is funneled upwards towards the top. So people at the top profit more than people down on the lower rungs. Well, that sounds a bit like a pyramid scheme, but for legal reasons, I can't actually call these companies pyramid schemes. However, just take a look at their business model. What do you call a business model with this shape? Advocare had sponsored a few race teams, NCAA basketball, and had even gotten an endorsement from Drew Brees, who touted it as a great opportunity for people to earn additional income. However, the Federal Trade Commission thought that Advocare was just a little bit too close to a pyramid scheme for their tastes, and they fined them for $150 million and told them to completely revamp their business from the ground up. The thing that had really gotten them in hot water was when they went around selling their service as being able to generate, quote, unlimited income. Considering that the money that currently exists on planet Earth right now is finite, that's one hell of a thing to say, and they paid dearly for it. To my knowledge, they haven't sponsored anyone in NASCAR since. With all of these sketchy sponsors floating around, you might be wondering why nobody is around sounding the alarm on these jerks before they actually do the damage. But NASCAR and the NASCAR Media Corps actually have a sort of gentleman's agreement to keep their hands off of sponsors, so as to not scare off any of the good actors. To be fair, it would only be a matter of time until somebody jumped the gun and said something about a company that just wasn't true, which is why everybody was so tight-lipped about the iK9 situation while it was developing. So let's talk about the NASCAR Media Corps. Back in the days when old media was king and the only game in town, the Media Corps used to consist of hundreds of beat reporters traveling across the country with NASCAR who worked for a variety of publications ranging from NASCAR Scene to the New York Times. Nowadays, though, with new media taking the spotlight, the Corps has shrunk to just a few dozen or so. And with accurate information at a premium, a journalist's reputation and trust is everything. If even one reporter goofs, then they threaten the legitimacy of all the others. So they have a tendency to jettison reporters from their in-group who don't mind their P's and Q's. Professionalism is everything in these circles. But with new media crowding out the old way, some new players inevitably come on the scene and threaten the trustworthiness of the whole operation. And that gets us to the 2020 Las Vegas media meltdown. After the season opener at Daytona had been delayed until Monday night, teams and media alike were exhausted when they rolled into Las Vegas on the other side of the country just 4 days later. A new player in the market, Motor Racing Insider, has sent an envoy of theirs to do social media for them on location, fellow YouTuber Joseph Lombard, who had signed on with them in late 2019. However, when Joseph was just starting to get settled into his new gig on Saturday, his phone started blowing up. Someone had looked into Motor Racing Insider and discovered that the articles on their site were plagiarized. And I don't just mean one or two of them, but all of them. And it wasn't like they had just stolen a few paragraphs here and there either. They had straight up copy-pasted the entire articles. Everything on their site was ripped off from other news sources. Joseph was their social media guy, not a